All right, get hype, get hype. That felt good. Dan Tordjman here, Ashley Mailloux, reunited after so many months apart. I miss you, Ashley.
I know it's not the same as 2021 Breeders' Cup at Del Mar, to say the least. But it's been a while since I've seen you, and always good to connect, whether it's in person or virtually. So I guess virtually is going to have to cut it for this Breeders' Cup.
No doubt, no doubt. We'll be back there at some point soon. You're watching America's Best Racing's Breeders' Cup Preview Live. As I mentioned, me and Ashley here joining you for this coverage. We have guest after guest lined up over the next 2 hours. We're putting them on time limits of 8 minutes each. If you think I'm joking, there's the timer there. 8 minutes per race. So we're going to cover all 14 Breeders' Cup races. And we think we stack these strategically so that the right people will be commenting on the races that are right in their wheelhouse. And I think the best person to start off with the Future Stars Friday races, none other than our pedigree expert and 2-year-old horse expert, Ren Carruthers. Ren, welcome in.
Oh my gosh. Hi, guys. I'm deliriously tired and deliriously excited also.
Well, we are excited to have you back. This is my dream
Thank
team
you.
here. This is like,
Aw.
that's it. This is everybody's here. And no
You bring
offense.
the funk.
Yeah, we do. And no offense to anybody who's joining us. We do have a lot of great guests coming up, so stay tuned. But Ren, let's get to it. I told you I'm going to be starting the timer here. The Juvenile Turf Sprint. I'm not going to count the time me and Ashley set the race up. It's just like once you start speaking, that's when the timer starts. Okay. So the Juvenile Turf Sprint, 3:00 Eastern on Friday. It's the first race. 5.5 furlongs on the turf. Wesley Ward has dominated this race. He's won it 3 times in a row. Right? 3 times in a row? Yeah, right. 4-wheel drive, Golden Pal, Twilight Gleaming. Am I right? Are those the horses? All right, Ren, who's winning it this year?
I'm going to go for him making it a 4P. Love Reigns, man. And I also feel like I should go word salad to build out the 8 minutes. Either that or I could go through the extensive pedigrees of all these horses, which I don't want to put everybody to sleep. But yeah, I mean, lightly raced, of course, but boy, did we see some ability from her. He took her over there to Royal Ascot. We saw her in the Queen Mary go out there and try to take it to them early. She ultimately was only beaten 3 lengths back and forth. That was a 21 horse field, by the way. We do have the winner of that race dramatized in the Juvenile Turf Sprint. I mean, I think that's a nice horse. I think she was able to take advantage of a situation potentially in that go. And of course, we do have the Platinum Queen, who's getting a ton of hype, and justifiably so. She actually won a winning year in for the Turf Sprint last out. We also saw her in the Nunthorpe, which is for 2 and up, male and female, running a close enough second where it's impressive to Highfield Princess, who is going against Golden Pal in the Turf Sprint and is the second choice on the morning line there. A multiple Group 1 winner also, I should say. But the thing with Love Reigns is I really did like to see what she put forth in that try. She never really gave up. In fact, it almost looked like she was going to try to come back on. And you are going on the straight there. Here we're getting that 5.5 distance with that turn. This is what she's contested before. She's coming out of that 2.5 length win at Saratoga in the Bolton Landing. And she looked very nice doing that. That's coming off a bit of, just a little bit of a freshener. And she was going to go in the Indian Summer, which was won by Private Creed. But I talked to Wesley Ward today at the barn, and he said he did not want her to run her Breeders' Cup race there in the Indian Summer, which is why he opted to scratch her that day. I would say, yes, I do respect the Platinum Queen, but I do worry. She drew that outside post. I don't think that's going to benefit her in the Queen Mary. If you watch the beginning of that race, she had a weird. It just says slow start there. If you watch it, it's more than a slow start. She hopped up and there was a little, hitch and go coming out of there. But yeah, I don't like the outside post for her. I do wonder. Yes, it's possible she's just a filly in really good form, but I also wonder if maybe her figures went up a bit because she had a softer going. She's going to have firm turf on Friday. So I'm going to look at the Persian Force rather as a horse to also use along with Love Reigns. I mean, he's been knocking heads with Blackbeard, with Little Big Bear. These are Group 1 winners. Blackbeard actually had annexed 2 Group 1s back to back, the Pre-Morny and then the Middle Park. So I think this is a horse who's been hardened, toughened up, being in against that type of competition. And you've got Frankie Dettori up. So that's another horse, like I said, I would be looking at. And also, if you take a look back at those running lines, when he won the July, which is a Group 2, he beat Mysterious Knight, who had come over here and won our summer stakes at Woodbine. I think that's 8 minutes. Is it 8 minutes? If it's not, I can keep going.
Not even close. We got plenty of time. I mean, did I make it sound that 8 minutes is all yours? We're going to help you here. We're all handicapping.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I had to go for 8 minutes talking.
No,
okay.
this is a team effort here. So you don't like the Platinum Queen. You do like Persian
I do
Force.
like her. I respect the heck out of her. I just think at the price that she's likely to be, I'm going to say, you know what? Go ahead and beat me in that case.
For sure. And don't worry about offending her. She's not watching. It's fine. And no European horse, by the way, has ever won this race. Now, it's only been going for, 5 or 6 years, so it's not like it's got a long history. Yeah.
I worry about offending inanimate objects sometimes. like the car, like my car. Oh, you stupid. Oh, I'm sorry. I love you, car. I didn't mean it.
Ashley, I know you're not as sensitive to the feelings of inanimate objects or human beings either. So why don't you tell us who you like in this race?
I'm kind of shocked. I thought this race, honestly, when I looked at it, I'm always looking for a price horse and trying to find value, and nothing extremely pricey stood out to me. And actually, Ren spoke about all 3 of my horses. I have 3 written down, 2, 6, and 12. I agree, though. I think when you look at, the fillies in here, they are tackling the males, and you look at the Platinum Queen last time out. Regardless, a huge effort. She got a great trip. Obviously, look at where her draw was, and I've watched the replay a couple times, but I think about things. It's a straightaway, and Ren kind of touched upon that today. When Friday 5.5, you're going around a turn. It's different, and if this was a straightaway and you had that post position, I wouldn't be concerned. But because you have that turn and she's going to be out there, she is quick. But there are very quick horses in here as well. And I don't know. Obviously, it's going to be a fast race, but how fast, I don't know. A lot will obviously be with how the turf course plays. I respect her. I wouldn't use her on top. I do like Love Reigns as well. Actually, the race that I like the best is the one at Saratoga. I thought, kind of looking at the stretch run there, I liked the move that she made. She looked comfortable doing it. She looked like it was way within her reach. I don't feel like we've seen everything she has to offer. And I'm not worried about her tackling the boys. Obviously, you look at the other horse I just talked about, faced older horses last time out and male rivals. And that's something that Love Reigns hasn't done. But I do go with her on top. I kind of looked at a couple others in here. I know you mentioned the Indian Summer and talking about Private Creed and the trips that he's been able to carve off because he's not going to the front. He's been kind of sitting in those races. And, last time out, they went quick enough to kind of set up a beautiful trip for him. And Joelle gave him a great ride and was able to beat several in there. When I watched the replay, I thought Mustache ran a pretty good race, considering kind of when you watch how kind of erratic he was for a minute there. But I'm still good with the fillies in here. I can see them being 1-2. And, I'm going to kind of tee this up for you, Dan. We kind of talked before the show about some prices that we might like. And you told me Persian Force is a horse that, has caught your eye.
Yeah, sorry. So we're playing a little mute game, by the way, because of an echo that we're hearing. So just never mind us. It may take a second for me to jump back in the conversation. Persian Force, I do like a lot for a lot of the same reasons that Ren mentioned.
And he's getting back.
Yeah, I mean, all of it, this horse is honest. I think shows up in one big group race after another. And you mentioned, Ren, some of the company that this horse has kept, Blackbeard, Little Big Bear. And this is a horse who I think is better with a target to chase down, right? A target in front of him. And I want to talk pace just briefly because by my count, you've got Love Reigns, that's 1. You've got Oxymore, that's 2. Sharp as Attack, Tyler's Tribe, Speedboat Beach, 5 horses who have done their best running on the lead. And so, yes, this is a turf sprint. There's going to be a lot of speed. There always is in turf sprints, or generally is. I think in this race, though, there's going to be an extraordinary amount of speed. And I think that's the only thing that could potentially compromise Love Reigns, because Love Reigns, I think... Yeah, go ahead.
That's why I really like the Bolton Landing, because we saw her take back and have to rate, and she did it. She did what she was asked to do, and with a 2-year-old and a 2-year-old filly, I like to see a horse listen and then be able to kick on in the way in which she did, and that's why I really still think that she's viable here, no matter how the pace shakes out. Which I do, like you said, I mean, project it's going to be pretty quick. I did talk to Bob today about, this horse Steamboat Beach put up this 104 buyer on debut, and then you go into the speakeasy. It's basically to avoid Cave Rock, his own horse. I mean,
that makes sense, and that's sort of what I assumed as well. Look, counter to your point is this comment right here. It was the same thing I was going to say, is that I don't really doubt that Love Reigns can be tactical, but the issue is, what if the horse gets shuffled back? It's a big field. You're in the 2-hole. Generally, you go from there. And I don't mind this argument on Mischief Magic. I think this is a straight, firm turf course play. They're looking for firm ground for this horse. Ran a couple of really big races over a harder surface in Europe, and then came off of a good turf course in his last start and finished 4th. So we're at time. We're going to have to leave. Let's just do this before we move on from this race. Quickly, to recap, Ren, your top 3 choices are?
Love Reigns, Persian Force, and of course, the Platinum Queen. I think she's going to make a bid. I don't know if she's going to get there or not. And I do also wonder if she's one of those horses, if she doesn't get her own way, she's going to basically spit the bit. I don't know. We'll see.
Okay. No couching now. We're at time. No couching now. You made your argument. Ashley, your top 3 are?
Love Reigns, the Platinum Queen, and then Persian Force.
Wow, I really hope we have some different opinions as the show goes on, because my top 3 are Love Reigns, Persian Force, and Speedboat Beach. Those will be my top 3. But still, we are pretty aligned on some of these races. All right, we're going to move on. Next race is the Juvenile Fillies. Race 7 Friday, 3:40 p.m. Eastern. By the way, I want to encourage people to continue dropping comments. Lots of comments. We're going to get to them, I promise. Derek Merkler, by the way, the trainer of Tyler's Tribe, shout out, doing a lot of great stuff on social media this week. Super excited for them. Very fun story. If you haven't read the Tyler's Tribe story, Google it or go to americasbestracing.net. We got a full
Dan Tordjman, your email to me here says, we've got you right up the top to cover the Juvenile Turf Sprint and the Juvenile.
Oh, the Juvenile Fillies.
Says Juvenile in my email. I'm looking at it right now.
We're going in order. Are you not prepared for the Juvenile Fillies?
I mean, I can, but I really would rather not give a pick in the Juvenile Fillies, only because I have so many different rooting interests because of personal reasons. I can.
All right, let's do this. Give us a pick. Give us a quick overview of the Juvenile Fillies. Or how about this? Ashley, why don't you set up the Juvenile Fillies? We'll get Ren's pick, and then we'll get a pick from her in the Juvenile.
So kind of looking at the Juvenile Fillies, mile and a 16th on the dirt. Looking at the field, I think there's a couple horses that people are probably going to gravitate towards. One of them obviously being Chocolate Gelato for Todd Pletcher. She's really hard to knock, obviously. Since she's stretched out in distance, I think we've seen another dimension from her. Graduated at 6 furlongs at Saratoga, then tackled the slop last time at, as I call it, back, Belmont at Aqueduct over the slot. But I thought it was a good performance because when you looked at her sprinting, she was on the lead. It was pretty easy for her. She did get a big buyer speed figure if that's kind of your jam. And then the grade 1 for Zet. I like that. It was a compact field. I get it. 6 runners, but she was not on the lead from the get-go, and I thought she got a great trip. So makes a lot of sense. I'm going to use her, but she's not my top pick. I really like Chop Chop. I think when we see what Chop Chop's been able to bring, you look at the first 2 races, both wins, one at Kentucky Downs being the more recent win, or the yielding going there, a very different course than she had seen at Ellis Park. And those are turf races. And then to see this one get on the dirt at Keeneland last time out, really shuffled back in that first time on the dirt, right? Obviously a very different trip than she was able to carve out in those turf races. And to get denied by a nose in the end, I thought she ran a heck of a race, a winning race, but just got defeated in there. And I just think second time on the dirt, there's room for improvement. Joelle Rosario back aboard her. I mean, I'm just kind of enamored by her. So for me, she's my top pick in here.
All right, I like that. We're getting some comments here with some opinions and some rooting interests. Obviously, drop your comments in and also share what you're drinking. Steve knows, as always, we do White Claws here. Tonight it's mango, but it's a long show, so I've also got a pineapple standing by. Ashley, have you seen these new flavors? They're spectacular.
I really love the blackberry. That's probably the best White Claw behind I should say in front of the black cherry. Those are the 2.
I don't
Yeah,
remember what I drank with you at Thurby, but whatever that was, it was very good.
I think they were black cherries. Yeah, we went safe with you. We didn't want to throw you any curves for your first big hard seltzer experience.
Exactly.
I'm gonna buy some more time for you, Ren. I will say I do love in this race. I'm a chocolate gelato fan in real life and also in this race.
I thought you didn't
Um,
like dessert. I thought you were like a dessert hater. What the heck?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not, I've kind of, I don't know. As I've gotten older, I really have gotten into like cold treats, like ice cream. I mean, gelato is just spectacular. So no, that's kind of where I'm at right now. I mean, I just celebrated a milestone birthday, not a
Yeah.
big deal.
Yes, it is.
And yeah, I'm really into it. So chocolate gelato. This horse actually, to my eye, seemed to regress a bit in the Frisette. She still won the race with relative ease. She didn't even get much of a setup in that race either. And it isn't clear to me, at least, that she loved the off track. She didn't look great. I think she could be coming into an even bigger race here. So I know I get the love for Chop Chop. For me, Chocolate Gelato is kind of the standout, but there is no standout in this field. And because of that, I'm going to take a shot with another long shot of my combination. Sabra Tough. This is a horse no one's going to
Because you
mention.
like the hummus.
Just because I love the hummus. But beyond that, Sabra Tough
Boy.
is a horse. Like, I looked at her on paper. I'm like, why the hell is this horse in this race? Like, she has no shot at all. I was like, you know what? I can't help myself. I'm going to watch a few replays. I was watching Wonder Wheel anyway, and she's run with Wonder Wheel. So I'm like, all right, I guess I'll keep an eye on Sabra Tough. Let's see what she did in this race. And she actually passes horses. She is a game horse. She always drops way too far back, never gets that much pace to run into, and still passes horses. In this race, Wonder Wheel is fast, You're My Girl is fast, Atomically is fast, Grand Love is fast, uh, Vegas Magic, Leave No Trace, a lot of pace. And I know I made the same case in the last race, and I'm not saying that this horse is going to close in a mile and the 16th and win this race, but Sabra Tough at 30 to 1, I can guarantee you will finish in the top 4 or 5. With a little bit of luck, I think could round out one of these trifectas or exactas, potentially just a massive prize. So Sabra Tough is my play here. That I think if you're going to listen to all these shows, you're going, oh, everybody's saying pick these two horses. No one's going to mention Sabra Tough. I'm telling you, Sabra Tough is going to hit the try or the super in here, guaranteed. Ren, what do you got?
Pita chips. Yalla. All right.
Yalla.
Well, okay, so here's the thing. I have rooting interest. I mean, I'm such a Todd fan. I'm such a Rapoli fan, obviously. And with chocolate gelato, the petty geek in me is just so like, please, if you guys get a chance, I'm going to plug myself for a minute. So if you go to Breeders' Cup, I put together with my guy, Ernie Munich, who's awesome. I adore him, love him. We put together these fun Future Stars Friday packages. We did one with Todd, and Todd actually even mentioned one of my own write-ups, that something I had mentioned about chocolate gelato, which just totally right. So with her, she is part of family 1X. And why do I bring that up? Because it's exceptional. I mean, this family is of so much depth. We're talking about going to La Troyenne. And when I tell you this, you'll probably go, oh, okay, you're not just spouting pedigree nonsense that I don't care about. Okay, think about it, right? Last year's winner, Corniche. 2020's winner of the Juvenile Essential Quality. Game winner. Folklore won the Juvenile Fillies. Rhythm, who won the Juvenile in '89. They're all part of family 1X. And her particular branch of 1X, her sixth dam is champion 2-year-old filly numbered account. And this type of stuff matters. It's a dynamic. This family is consistently throwing class. It's one of the most prolific there is. So if this filly can continue to add to that legacy, I love it from that storyline point alone. You mentioned you maybe thought she regressed. Did she regress, or is it she's winning despite maybe bad conditions on the racetrack? I don't know, right? She's a beautiful horse, saw in person, very impressive. So yes, of course, if she wins, I'll be happy. I'll be happy for my friends at DJ Stable, Jonathan Green. If Wonder Wheel should win, this filly's, I got to hang out there. She's so sweet. And obviously accomplished. She's now a grade 1 winner. I thought that she just needed the race there in the spinaway. She was coming off a layoff from July into that September start, and she still ran a game race of it. We've seen different dimension from her, able to come from off of it or go to the lead as she did in the Alcibiades here at the host track. Granted, she was going 2 turns there, so of course she's going to be coming from a different spot, but I do think she is tractable mentally. She can do whatever. And she did from the 1 hole. It's also fun to mention that her damn Wonder Gal was third in the 2014 Breeders' Cup Juvenile Filly. So that's a fun standpoint there. The horse that I think we should be thinking about, and you should definitely have on your ticket, is Raging Sea. Raging Sea, to do what she did in just the second start of her career, having first won her debut back in August, and then coming in and coming within a neck, finishing third, disqualified into fourth, but a neck of Wonder Wheel in just that second start, amazing. Also, from the pedigree standpoint, you are by Curlin, you're damn Stormy Welcome by Stormcat. Well, the interesting thing there, because we all love AP Indy, do we not? Stormy Welcome is out of Welcome Surprise. Welcome Surprise is a half sister to AP Indy. So you've got distance, you've got everything, and now you have a filly who has more seasoning to her, along with Flavian Pratt. So back up in the irons. So yeah, I mean, he rode her in the debut, and he seemed to be very. He thought I had her on. I had him on my show, not the horse. He seemed to be very excited about this filly moving forward. So I do think she is one we should watch. Yes, it's the 14 hole. Again, it's an 8.5 furlong race. I'm not too concerned about it.
All right, you did good with the time there. We were coming up on it. Raging Sea, Chris here brings up a point here that I thought was interesting in that I thought that the biggest issue for her would be 14 post, and the 14 post with her running style as someone who's typically, as a horse who's typically forward, I don't know how she gets a trip because I think she ends up losing a ton of ground, given her, unless she could do something different.
But this is the thing with the 2-year-olds. When you say typically forward, it's like she's had 2 starts. So do we know that she can't come from somewhere else necessarily? We just don't know that. Yeah, we don't know if maybe she can drop in, drop off. It's just one of those things. It's the unknown. What I look for when I'm looking at the 2-year-olds in particular isn't so much, I mean, unless they've had like 4 or 5 starts, I'm looking at more at, is there upside? Is there something in the pedigree that's telling me this horse should improve going forward? And did I see enough from them in these few starts that tells me that there is something there mentally, and that what the element you cannot train in, which is gusto and grit, to go forward and contend at the championships like this. And I do think she showed something there. So we'll see.
All right. Well, look, you thought you were going to be on for the juvenile. You're not. The next guest will be, but since you handicapped it, just give us a real quick.
It's simple.
It's K-Brock.
You guys, I'm so sorry. Get your chalk. I mean, get your water, because you're going to be eating chalk. And I'm telling you, anybody who's betting against him, throw away your money, I guess. Because here, okay. You already look at the paper, right? The paper. He's already insane. You put up 101 buyer on debut, then you put in it 43 and 3.5 in the Del Mar Futurity, and then you do what your pedigree says you actually do want to do, and that is go 2 turns. And you put up that 104 in the American Pharaoh as part of a Bob Superfecta, well out in front of the rest of them. This horse, on paper, I was already so impressed. I saw him in person. He drops your jaw. He looks like the cliche, a man amongst boys. He has the it factor in every freaking way. He wants his photo taken. He's like, hey, what's up? And he's just beautiful. And real quick regarding what I said regarding the pedigree and why he wants this, Arrogate. I know we only saw him start at 3 years old, but consider this why we're seeing precociousness. Arrogate's by Unbridled Song. Unbridled Song won the juvenile in 95. Arrogate's third dam, that's his great-grandmother. Meadow Star, she won the juvenile fillies, was 2-year-old juvenile filly champion. And then on the bottom side, you want more distance. Okay, so the dam is by Bellamy Road, and the second dam is by Dynaformer. That is distance all day long.
There she is. There she is. I see Ashley with a big smile. That's it. Now, you were doing so well. We had you following the rules, and then you broke the rules, Ren.
I did.
You're way over
that.
That's
her thing. We know she loves the pedigrees, and I've already been watching the YouTube videos. I saw your video earlier with Shug, and this is why we love you, and just to get all of your information, because I can't retain that information like you do, and it's pretty remarkable.
Thank you so much.
It's awesome. You're a rock star, Ren. Good luck out there the rest of the week.
Best of luck to y'all. Talk to you later.
Bye, Ren. All right, next up, D'Lo. Giddy up. Race 8 Friday.
You hear me? Are you there? Dan, is that you with that purple jacket?
It ain't purple. It's blue. Blue.
It's not Breeders' Cup purple. You look good with that hat and the jacket. You look real. Actually, you look good too, but not as good as Dan.
No, I don't have a hat or a jacket.
Look at that hat and the V-neck. He moved to Jersey a few months ago, and now he's V-necking. I love it.
8 minutes a race. We don't have time for this, man. Juvenile Phillies turf. We do have time for. Ashley, you got to help me sing a song, a popular song. 3, 2, 1. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
Too old.
Happy birthday, dear
old?
D'Lo.
37 years old. 37 years old today.
You're younger than Dan. That's okay.
That's older than James, right?
Jesus.
Ed better looking.
All right. Juvenile Phillies turf. Race 8 Friday. D'Lo, set it up for us.
Well, can I just say one thing? Tough coming on after the Pettigeek. Huh? That's like coming on hitting the Comedy Store after Dave Chappelle. Like, thanks for this slot, Dan. I really appreciate it. Breeders' Cup Juvenile Phillies turf. 14 horses. We have 2, 3, 4, 5 European horses. Who's the speed, Dano? You know that's where I always start.
Allow me to unmute myself. The speed of the race is Delight. Delight is going to get to the front. 9 horse.
Okay, so we're gonna first wager of the night.
Are we doing this live?
Oh yeah. What do you want to do this? Do this quietly in the corner? We're gonna do this live right here. Ashley's gonna take the notes, the whole thing. On the lead going around the first turn is gonna be number 7, Spirit Gal. And Spirit Gal's gonna go wire to wire.
No chance.
1, probably 14-1. Yeah. Watch
Spirit
this horse's
Gal.
replay. Spirit Gal, number 7, French bred, Charles Fipke horse. Have you ever heard of the trainer Willie Brown? 76 years old, Willie Brown's first Breeders' Cup horse. When I see that, I get a little peaked up a little. Just go, okay. And when I hear the word fairy tale, the horse was sent to Joseph O'Brien, had some shin problems. They brought the horse to Willie Brown to break, and then they said, why don't you just keep the horse? And the horses just got better and better. And they're like, all right, why don't you keep the horse and better? If you watch the horse's replay last time on Polly, she broke, like a rocket ship. So first thing, I don't see a ton of speed from the U.S. horses. If you want to tell me that the Saez Jonathan Thomas horse could probably be towards the lead and Delight, I could go that route. It's always tough to predict the pace projection in a race like this when you have 2-year-olds. You don't have a lot to go off of. Quick first turn, so the horses on the outside might just get sent like a dart. But I just don't see a lot of horses with a ton of front foot. So that's kind of where I want to start in a race like this. I've had success in juvenile type races that I watch enough replays where I just got bang out of the gate. I want to see someone forward, either on the lead or near the lead. This horse last time out on Polly broke like a rocket, was on the front end, ran a pretty decent clip, and then just started to extend away. And I go, okay, who is this horse beating? I look it up. This horse beat the second place horse was an Aidan O'Brien horse. It was a Group 3 winner next out. Pretty decent. This horse, and it was against boys. It was a filly against boys last time. I feel like this is a horse that no one's really going to talk about. It's taking a little money in the Euro books. This is a horse that I'm very, very interested in. The pedigree is there. Everything that I look for at a Breeders' Cup type of long shot is here. When you're looking for these bomb prices in the Breeders' Cup, normally, unless it's the Distaff last year where there were 6 speed horses in the race, I want someone that's going to be forward and not going to have to pass the whole field. So I'm looking for a bomb that's going to be somewhere forward on the lead. It's, you can close on the turf at Keeneland, but with some of the moisture this past week, I'm looking for a horse that is going to kind of be game, dig in, and go. And I think this horse has got that chance at 20-1. So I'm betting this horse to win. I know Dano will say no, which makes me like it even more, right, Ashley? I don't know. What are you thinking?
I love G. Laurie. I've starred, circled, highlighted, you name. It looks like I was a kid and just circled this horse 100 times. For a couple of reasons. I mean, I've had a lot of luck over the years. I'm not trying to, be sentimental, I guess, with Graham Motion and these sorts of races where he's developing 2- and 3-year-olds and how they do, especially on the grass. And you look at their debut, as impressive it was at Colonial. going long for the first time, mile and a 16th, runaway winner in there in the end. And this is a horse that made a late move. Was she much the best in there? Yes. Okay. Do I think she faced super tough competition? No. So they put her in the grade 1 at Talma. I will say, I think compared to maybe the last 7 or 8 runnings, it wasn't the toughest of groups. When you look at it, I know a lot of horses are exiting that. The other top, the top 2 finishers are going to be in this race as well. I just think in years past, you look at some of the horses that have won it, it's been a tougher race. But with that said, I don't think the tempo was considerably fast in the race. And I know it was a compact, bunch in the stretch, but I think this horse had a ton of problems, to say it nicely and appropriately for this show. I mean, when you look at this horse in the stretch, just had nowhere to go, severely, I thought, lost a chance, and then somehow kicked on again and was moving really nicely to finish 3rd in there. I think she ran a great race, going to get blinkers on today, which I think will be, I should say, on Friday, but changes the tactics maybe. I thought obviously she was a bit closer last time out. The whole bunch was closer in that race, but I just thought it was intriguing. You look, Buick's in the irons. Graham does well with the blinkers. I think the price is 10-1 morning line. For me, I just kind of gravitated towards this horse, and that's where I'm going for the top pick.
I know that's Jessica Paquette's play of the weekend. Of course, she's a little biased because it's a Colonial horse, and that's where she was this summer as an analyst. I will say my one concern with G. Laurie and anything from post 10 and outward going a mile on the turf at Keeneland, very difficult. They're 0 for like forever. Pulled up a stat on one of the ABR pieces that kind of give you some Keeneland track trends and trip notes and that sort of thing. 0 for 47 a few years ago. I know Dilo doesn't like putting a blanket over anything. You got to look at the race. You got to look at the individual setup of a race. Post 10 and out.
I would just say, don't let it talk you off of a horse.
Right, for sure.
If you like a horse like she does, like Ashley does, when she makes some really valid points. This horse had a really bad trip last time. It ran really well. I thought the figure should have been faster. Colonial first time out. Just don't. I'm not going to like this horse anymore because of the post, because of some Dano, crazy. Never won out of this post after 4 o'clock in the fall with the moon. Just stick to your process. Go for it. Hit it hard.
I will say another trend, U.S.-based fillies have actually dominated this race. This is like the anomaly, right? Like this is the race where the U.S. horses generally win. I think since 2012, only 2 horses, Flotilla, Chrysalium, were the only 2 horses who have won this race coming from Europe. So Europeans, for whatever reason, I guess there are a number of reasons, but this time of year and given, especially when you're up against trainers, again, like Graham Motion here, who've got these really good 2-year fillies, Jonathan Thomas, Chad Brown, obviously, Free Look is one who's interesting here. Cairo Consort, I thought was interesting. I did land on Delight, and not, for anything, it's not the sexiest pick in the world. I just think that, I do think Delight will be on the lead. And I'll go back and take a look at Spirit Gal now that, Mark, you mentioned her races, and you think she's got the speed to be up there. But we're at time for this race. So we'll move on to the next one, which is the big one on Friday. It's the Juvenile, race 9, 5 o'clock. Cave Rock is the horse to beat. Any sense in trying to find a horse who can beat him, or you're giving up in that pursuit, Dilo?
No, I feel Cave Rock is definitely there. There is nobody. So I think it's really important. Like I've talked to Dan and you and Ashley a bunch about like kind of my process around just playing the horses regularly on the weekends, and it's just so important. You need. It's not just about who you're betting, who you like. It's how you're betting the race, and it's in order to have success any day. Specifically on Breeders' Cup Day, you need to hit horses on your A line. Like most of what horse racing has really turned into here, for me at least, is a horizontal game. Pick 3s, pick 4s, pick 5s. You need to have a strong A line. You need to hit horses on your A line. At least a few. You need 3 in a pick 4 or 5, 4 in a pick 5 or 6 to really have success. And you need to kind of start to weigh, if there's a strong favorite, can you weigh a horse equally as much as a horse like Cave Rock in a race like this? And it's very hard to do because you see that this horse has a lot of talent. The pedigree's there. The connections are there, right? Like the figures are more than there. if I want to take a little slight knock out of the horse, I feel like the horse has been very green. I thought the horse kind of finished extremely well. I thought that the horse ran really well last time, being a little bit green, which isn't specifically a Bob Baffert type of, his MO. When you kind of look back at some of his big stud horses, you just see a professional, long-winded stride, high cruising speed type of horse. But there's really no getting around that this horse has a lot of talent, and you want to take the other end of what I just said in the green department, that he could, snap and say, all right, now we've run so many times now, and we've gotten more professional. And if he does get the professional and breaks a little bit better, maybe he just, puts on a real show here. So it's hard for me to weigh someone on my A line more or as equal as Cave Rock, which I think is a really important thing, which I talk about on Giddy Up Bats all of the time. But so Cave Rock for me he's a lone A, but there is a horse that I'm very interested in, which I'm, after everything that I kind of said, I'll get a little aggressive, and I like number 8, Lost Ark, Todd Pletcher, Luis Saez. In order to win, you need to always be trying to beat a Baffert 2 to 5 shot. Excuse me, how should I say this? In order to beat a Baffert 2 to 5, 3 to 5 shot, you need one thing, and that is horses to press that Bob Baffert horse. If that does not happen, Cave Rock's going to roll. Now, I think that the rail horse has speed. I feel that, again, like I said about the turf race on the outside, maybe they're going to have to kind of giddy up and go, and they're going to fly a little bit early. Maybe that can lead to a very fast pace. With these juvenile races, it's very tough to judge. But if we can get some pace in Cave Rock, I really like Lost Ark. The horses run 3 straight 9s on Thoroughgraph sheets, which for me looks like in his 4th outing with Todd Pletcher with the right workout spacing, the horse should improve. Now, I don't need this horse to improve to a sheet number just like Cave Rock did last time when it was loose on the lead at San Diego when the numbers come up faster. But this horse ran much better than it looks on paper last time. The horse got bumped, steady, shuffled during the first turn. It made a slight inside move. It was wide around the second turn. I'm happy with that. 2 back, the horse at Monmouth ran really well. Showed me a long stride, gobbling up ground, finishing well, really nice gallop out. That's what I want to see in a 2-year-old. When I've seen the horse run 15 times, little things like that is go, all right, how good could this horse be? Maybe he won't win. But in the Breeders' Cup specifically, in 2-year-old races, October, November, December, I have a lot of success. You got to look at these little things. You're going to get 25, 30 to 1 on a horse like this. I'll be betting a horse like this. But on a horizontal side, a pick 4, pick 5, pick 6, it'll be hard for me to weight this horse as much as Cave Rock. But this is a horse that I'm very, very interested in, and I'd love to hear your guys' opinions as well.
Dan, are you going to try to beat Cave Rock?
So I'm actually, Mark just made my entire case for Lost Ark. I know that I'm going to try to beat Cave Rock necessarily. I got to see where I am at that point of the day. I mean, obviously, you want to see how everything's going, right? You want to see how the track is played all day.
How much I'm down, how much...
Yeah, how much I'm down, how much I put on, Persian Force, and
how much you've had, how many White Claws you've had,
how many White Claws we've had. But no, I the horse is like a massive trip horse, right? I saw 20 to 1 morning on with. There's no chance. I mean, this horse is going off 12 to 1. And I think the question is Hurricane J. I think Hurricane J is the wild card down on the rail. Has a ton of speed. Has the ability to make life complicated for Cave Rock, and if he can do that. And it's to Mark's point, if Cave Rock isn't maybe figuring things out and on the verge of getting better, but if he is still a little weird and green and wonky and still trying to figure things out a little bit, he has to work a little bit earlier, and then he has this horse who by all accounts, you watch his first 2 races, they were freakishly good races.
Yes.
And so Lost Ark for me would be the horse to beat Cave Rock if anybody, but if not him, I don't see who does. How about you, Ash?
You touched on 2 of the horses. The only other thing I'll say is, obviously, I think Cave Rock, with what we've seen so far, will be extremely difficult to beat. I keep on going to the Grade 1 Champagne, and I've watched the replay a couple times and looking at the horses that came out of that.
I like where she's going here. I like where she's going.
So to me, I've gone back and forth between Verifying and Blazing Sevens and trying to make a case for either of them. And I mean, when you start with Chad's Colt, the Good Magic Colt Blazing Sevens, Obviously, a pretty impressive maiden victory at Saratoga, going 3 quarters, slight stretch out. The hope.
Oh no, she frozen?
Did we lose her?
I think she's
It is-
frozen.
I was just about to talk about the
terms
horse
of-
that's probably going to win. There we go.
Oh, there we
And
go.
in terms
Ashley, you
of the
froze.
performance,
Sorry.
in the Champagne, I thought he.
Oh no.
Oh no.
No. Poor Ashley. We've like sucked
Ashley,
up all
come
the
back.
we've sucked up all the airtime from you, and you finally get to talk about a horse, and then your screen freezes. Let's give it one
Am I
more
good?
shot, Ashley. Yeah.
No, I was just talking about basically the Champagne, right? Looking at the progression of Blazing Sevens, I thought should have run better in the Hopeful, didn't, and then comes back and stretches out slightly with a better performance. I think it's something to note, but looking at where this horse in terms of trip and the trip that he got, then I look at Verifine's trip, a different kind of strategy with Verifine. Obviously, Gate to Wire and debut still was close to it in the Champagne. And second best, I thought it was a good effort, but kind of now thinking about going to a mile and a 16th, I've gone back and forth. I'm looking at Blazing Sevens a little bit more.
Okay. All right. So Blazing Sevens, maybe not necessarily to win, but a horse you're going to use on your
Correct.
tickets, I take it. Okay.
Yep.
Greg Lawler has brought up a good point here. We have not been mentioning the numbers of the horses. So let's do that. The Blazing Sevens, it would have been nice if he was the 7 horse, but he's actually number 6. So if you want to use Ashley's Blazing Sevens, that's the 6 horse. Cave Rock is going to be popular in a lot of tickets as the 3 horse in a juvenile. And then the horse we also talked about, Lost Ark, is the 8 horse. So between us, we're 3, 6, 8. Maybe that's your exacta, maybe that's your trifecta, or maybe you just keep it real narrow. And if you're feeling good about Cave Rock, maybe that's your single. Similar to what we'll talk about on Saturday with Flightline, if you're playing pick 4s and pick 5s, consider Cave Rock and Flightline, obviously in a more extreme way in Flightline's case, a narrowing presence on your tickets. What I mean by that is that if you're playing a pick 5 and you're singling those horses, you're actually only playing a pick 4. And if you're playing a pick 4 and you're singling either of those horses, you're actually only playing a pick 3. It may not work out exactly like that, but I would say with Flightline, 100%. And with Cave Rock, in my mind, I think Cave Rock is obviously the more vulnerable of the two. He's the one who's less proven. And we've only seen him once at this distance. And he's you could question his ability to go this distance. All right, what we've done is in the process.
I'll leave you guys with one thing because I know you guys are gonna hop off and you guys are doing an amazing job and you've got better people on than me. But just to pivot off of what Dan said, my father would always tell me that people spend 99% of their time handicapping and 1% of their time betting. On a day like the Breeders' Cup, starting tomorrow, with a piece of paper and maybe on an Excel sheet or however you want to do it, start to come up with a process of how you're going to bet these races, which sequence you like the most, how you're going to weight certain horses, construct tickets. Don't spend 99-1. If you could just do 80-20 or 7, spend time putting it together if you're going to lean into a Cave Rock or Flightline or some crazy horse with a French jockey like Dan will do on Saturday. Do that. Put the time in, write it out, have a good time, have a few drinks, have some fun. Don't bet over your head. You can have a good time, win a lot of money, and good luck to you guys, all right?
Happy
Words
birthday,
of wisdom
brother.
from D-Lo. I love it.
Yeah. Happy birthday, bro. Go grab yourself a claw. Wind down.
Ooh, I got a few claws in the refrigerator, so I might. I'm gonna watch the Knicks and handicap Saturday.
These are actually D-Lo's claws. He brought these for me. He brought me the exact number of claws plus 1 as my birthday. So that's a lot of claws if you know how old I am. He brought me that many claws plus 1. So good man, D-Lo. Thank you, brother.
53 claws that I had to bring. 53.
It's a lot of freaking claws.
I'll see you guys later.
Nice,
Love you
bro.
both.
Love
Happy
you, bro.
Breeders' Cup.
Bye.
Mark DiLorenzo, giddy up bets. This man has been waiting super patiently. Jose, D-Lo ate into all your time, so you only have 1 minute. Go.
All right, guys. No, but good to see you guys. And the background is notably on purpose because the last time we were all 3 of us together enjoying some Topo Chicos was right here at the Breeders' Cup at Del Mar.
Ashley went out and got him.
We got the same one. Same one. Pineapple.
I'm the only one
You're
not
close.
doing it.
It's a White Claw pineapple, though. It's a close.
Salud.
Cheers.
Love it. Cheers, cheers. And if you're watching, obviously, as we've encouraged you, if you drink, grab a drink, settle in, ask your questions. We got a lot of good questions here, a
Yeah.
lot of good comments. So drop them in here. Jose is the guy, and Jose, we set you up with I think a pretty fun handicapping race here, juvenile turf.
And I said, give me the juveniles. I want a little bit of chaos, a little bit of an unknown with the 2-year-olds, and that's what we got. So we're gonna take a look at the last race on Friday. Is that correct?
That's it. That's it.
Yeah. All right. So I'll start this by saying this: if the Europeans win this race, I won't win anything. I'm tossing them out. I'm gonna try to beat the Europeans, Victoria Road, and Silver Knot. And I just feel like a lot of these 2-year-olds that are here have experience over this racetrack, and overall the local runners. I still think there's plenty of upside. So to me, the intriguing part was that we're gonna get good prices on horses that still we have not seen what they can do at their best. Now, having said that, I do have to say that I don't like the SoCal Invader Paxton Wallop. I think the odds are too low on the 2-horse. Mike Smith, even though that one has rattled off 3 straight wins on the turf, including 2 going a mile, I'm not so sure the competition has been strong enough for him to warrant that low of morning line odds. So I am against the 2-horse as well. So right off the bat, guys, I'm against 3 expected short price favorites in this race.
We like where you're going, and which 30-1 over 20-1 over 30-1 trifecta are you giving us?
All right, so this is where I kind of this is the beauty of these turf races where it's all about trips because there's going to be a cavalry charge in the stretch, and also I went to look at some of these. What do you guys think about the musical chairs going on right here? Because I was visually impressed by, and the winner is. Pratt ends up on the Chad Brown because the Chad Brown barn, he wants to stay in that barn. I think that was just a jockey decision of the barn, where I think and the winner is the stronger of those two. Just comparing those 2 runners, I was visually impressed with and the winner is performances, especially last time out over this track. And if you look at the race 2 starts back at Saratoga for and the winner is, which is the 6-horse, by the way, for Wayne Catalano, they were a little bit closer to the pace, and the good surface wasn't really to me up to his liking. So I was able to give him a flat third, an excuse for that flat third. If you look at his debut win at Keeneland and then his mile and 16th win in the Bourbon, I think they found his running style where he wants to sit off the pace and then really make that strong leg move. So to me, and the winner is for sure will be in every kind of scenario for me in the tickets. And one interesting 20-1 shot that I like is the 9-horse Nagarok. I know you guys were just talking about Grand Motion. I find it interesting that this horse is stretching out for the first time, but also since in that win, even though it was only a neck win, I thought he had to stop and make multiple moves. Like he had to lose momentum, regain it, stop again, move again. To me, that is very, very difficult to do in turf racing, especially turf sprints. So even though it was only a neck win, the fact that he had to make a little bit of different moves in the race, I give him a big shot on the stretch out there. Nagarok at 20-1.
I like that. Ashley, Steve's question is, can Gaslight Dancer get over into the first turn? He's got sprint speed at 30-1. Let's get weird. All about that. I think so, potentially. I mean, I don't know if he's going to get completely over, but I mean, he could get probably into like a 3-path trip or a 2-path trip. What do you think, and who do you like here?
I mean, I think so. He's coming out of the 7/8 race and more recently 3/4. And it's the same race that Nagarok comes out of, who set off just off of him, not too far off of it. They went really quick, but again, that's going 3/4. So I think he can get that position. I just don't know about the distance, where when I look at Nagarok, I can see a bit more of the distance angle, just based on his performances, but it's tough. And then I look at the winner is, and you talked about the trip last time out, Jose. The thing is, though, look how quick they went to the half, too, right? When you look at that, when you go through all of these horses in their races, I mean, that's by far like the fastest out of the U.S., North America-based horses at 45-4. So it did set up for him, but I thought it was a great performance, and I thought he improved as well. So I had some interest in him. We've talked about, horses like Gaslight Dancer having the speed, and now and the winner is being able to sit off of it. I kind of went with a middle ground approach of being close to the pace and not being too far off of it. Again, don't love the post position that Major Dude gets here, but Major Dude is where it ended up landing for a couple reasons. There's been great coverage of, breakfast at Breeders' Cup and in the works and all of that. And he's been training with Annapolis. They showed the work at Keeneland. On the turf course, he had the inside going against a more polished older horse who doesn't have a huge resume in terms of number of starts, but is very accomplished. And I thought he looked a little lost kind of in the final, maybe quarter of the work. But again, with Keeneland having the cones up, these horses have never been kind of in the middle of the track and looking around with a stablemate to the outside. And once he saw Annapolis come up, he moved forward again. And I think looking at his races, this is a horse that had 3 dirt starts, stretched out each time, was pretty nice in 2 of them, I would say. I know we kind of talked about Lost Ark earlier today coming out of that sapling race. But then last time out, had the turf. Not ideal, probably conditions for your first time going 2 turns on the turf, a yielding track. And I just thought he got a good trip. And I loved the way that I thought I'm Very Busy looked like he's going to fly by the entire group. When you saw the horse make the move kind of in the turn. And then somehow this horse found more. So I think he's got more dimensions to him. A lot of people like the Bolt Dioros. I think now looking the dirt to the turf, I do think he's a better turf horse. And I'm just curious to see what the price will be on him.
So are you Major Dude and I'm Very Busy 1-2 in this?
No, I'm going to use Major Dude on top. I'm going to use Silver Knot for second. Before the morning line came up, I literally wrote on the pre-entries, intriguing. I thought this horse, just looking at his performances. I also thought the race 2 back in Great Britain in that Group 2. It says here he didn't like the going. Obviously, it was soft. He's going to get firmer ground than that. And just to see his win last time out, I thought he was pretty game in that effort. So that was also stretching out from 7/8 to a mile. So for me, it's those 2. And I think this is probably the best betting race on Friday in terms of mine. I like trifectas. We all know this from 2021 Del Mar trip, but I think there's a lot of value in this if that's kind of the tickets that you like to construct.
You're talking to the tacos and trifectas guy over here. I'm going to be playing the verticals, all Breeders' Cup there. And another 20-1 shot that I'll mention. How about Mustache? To me, Mustache should have won that race last time out where Private Creed was setting a stakes record time. He was so difficult to ride in the stretch after getting bumped pretty badly as well. If he would have kept a straight path or just ran a straight race in the stretch, he would have won for fun, I thought. He had so much momentum. I don't know if he's going to stretch out well, but he's another 20-1 that to me that's interesting, that should be rolling, picking up the pieces.
I love the cases that you've made. You're referencing replays, but you guys are killing me with the outside post going a mile on the turf at Keeneland. It's just not possible. You got to be a super horse to get over going into that first turn. You're going to lose a ton of ground, and so I look. The case on Major Dude, I think if you got a bit of speed, same thing with Gaslight Dancer, you could get over and potentially save yourself a little bit. It's just so tough. If you're a horse with sort of average speed, you're going to get caught out wide there unless you're able to just make that immediate left-hand turn. But even that's tough. So I'm just scared of those horses. I'm not going to, in any way undercut. If we had this conversation, I'm going to go, you come up with a 30-1 shot in this race, I will not talk you off of it. Go for it. 20-1 shot, go for it. I am with you, Ashley, on Silver Knot. I think this horse makes the most sense. Charlie Appleby won this race last year. Europeans have actually, I don't want to say dominated, but again, have done really well in this race. They won 10 of 15 runnings of this race. So I'm with a Euro there. If it's not Silver Knot, I like the horse down the rail. Victoria Road, I thought had a bit of a look too.
And also, did you guys notice that the Europeans, they most recently Victoria Road won at carrying 126, 134. Silver Knot won 132, 129. Yeah. So they're getting about 10-pound weight break for whatever that may mean. So they're going to be tough. I just know I want to take some swings in this race. So I'll go 6, 9, and 12. If any of those 3 can be in the mix in the verticals, 6, 9, or 12 to me, I might do well in this race.
Love it. 6, 9, and 12. Ashley, you're 13, 4, and...
Yeah, don't remind me about the 13 post position.
It's
13, 4, and I'm actually going to go with the 2. I know Jose wasn't a fan of this horse, but I'm going to use this horse lower on my tickets.
Yeah, I don't mind Paxaball. I think the horse got a shot, so we'll see. We're going to move to Saturday. Jose, you're our swing handicapper here. Sarah, I see you in the green room. Hang tight. We ran a little late. We are going to bring you on here for the next one. But Jose, you're our swing guy. Juvenile Turf on Friday. and then you bring us into Saturday with the Filly and Mare Sprint. How's it going to
Uh,
go?
I love sprints, so I was glad to pick up this race, 7 furlong Philly Mare Sprint, third race on Saturday. And there's a couple of things that I like about this race, and the reason was, um, you got to respect the New Mexico bred runner along the rail. I don't think he's going to get a lot of support. I don't think she's going to get a lot of respect, even though she just romped by 6 over that racetrack. But I believe Slam, when winning that third that local prep there, the Grade 2, the Thoroughbred Club, they had to supplement her to be eligible to run in this race. If I remember, if that's what I understand correctly. So they look, and she ran ultra game when missing by half a length to Edgeway, who's right outside of her in gate 2, where she stumbles pretty badly at the start. So that's a pair of 15-1 shots right off the bat that I think are legitimate runners in this spot. I'm going to play against Cece, even though she's a local horse. She's previously won this race. She's a 6-year-old mare with 2.3 in earnings. I wasn't in love with her campaign this year, specifically since April to July. That layoff in July at Gulfstream, that's a racetrack she has success. She was supposed to clobber that field, and she took care of business. Then she went to Saratoga, did not fire. Then came back to Santa Anita. She was supposed to destroy that field, and she took care of business. 2.25 lengths, but I wasn't in love with the way she was finishing up. To me, she might be regressing a bit from what we saw at the top of her game. So I think she's vulnerable at 4-1 on the morning line, CC. So I'm going to play against that one. But I got to say, if I love the way Echo Zulu looked last time out, and I love her post. Being on the outside, everything's going to develop for her along the inside. I think Ricardo Santana getting the mount back on her was a very good move. I'm a big believer in good karma with riders. So him getting the mount back and getting that win last time out, I love the post for Echo Zulu. I think they're going to have the option to kind of find out what everybody else on the inside is doing and kind of work out a strip. As long as she doesn't get stopped, keep her wide. I don't care if she has a 4-wide trip every step of the way. I think she'll be very, very tough with Ricardo Santana Jr. So a couple of prices along the inside, guys. Slam and Edgeway. Don't overlook those runners. But I like Echo Zulu with the outside post.
Ash?
I still like CC. I completely get what Jose was saying about 2 back at Saratoga, disappointed. But part of me looks at the ballerina in 2021. She wasn't, I don't think it's her track. And I completely agree, because you look at the races too at Gulfstream, and I got to witness both of her races in the Princess Rooney. And I know when they were thinking about sending her outside of there, they thought that might be a surface that she got over, and she loved the dirt there. And looking at the group that she faced this year, she did what she should have done. I thought Spirit Went, who ran second, the Ralph Nix trainee, ran one heck of a race to kind of come in as I believe it's a younger horse tackling the older seasoned horses. She was beaten by 6.5 lengths, but I thought she ran well. Make Mischief came back to win next time out. It wasn't as hard as some of the other fields that she's faced, and we know she likes Gulfstream. I don't think she likes Saratoga as much as other surfaces. And then, I thought last time out she did her job, is the nice way that Jose phrased it. But I do think, just looking at her campaign this year, they took similar approaches, and it worked out last year. Obviously, now she's getting to Keeneland. She's only had the one start there. I still think in terms of trip, you look at the race and the speed factor of other horses, she typically still gets herself in a good position. We see that race by race when you go down the page, and I like how close she's been to the pace. 2 back, she was further than usual, but she's always, 2 to 4 lengths off the pace setter. And I'm thinking her position in terms of the draw was fine. You mentioned Echo Zulu gets that outside post, and we know, this horse can be on the lead and loves to be on the lead. And the outside post, I don't mind. I still don't like post 13 in general. I'm using it in some other races, but she's going to make her second start off that bit of a freshening as well. And I think, you look at it and kind of her campaign, she might have needed that break once again, a little break, and then she came back with a big win. So I'm still going to go CC in here. I respect Echo Zulu. I think Good Night Olive, a lot of people are going to like. And you look at, trainers and their progression, and you start to look at the resume. I mean, she's a 5-time winner, but she didn't tackle stakes competition until last time out. And we see this all the time from Chad, right? Kind of takes it easy. Then all of a sudden they're in a grade 1 or a grade 2. And she ran a heck of a race. She should be close to the pace as well. But I'm going kind of with one of the more seasoned horses.
I like the logic too. And I like the way you alluded to the pace and the potential setup, because I do think there's a lot of speed in here.
Yes.
You got Hot Peppers, you got Lady Rocket, you got Slammed, you got Echo Zulu, of course. So you got a ton of speed. So I kind of I like Cece. I think Cece, I don't want to say her best days are behind her, but she certainly doesn't seem to be in as good a form as she was at least earlier this year and to close out last year. So I have her in the mix. I don't have her to win. I do think Goodnight Olive is probably in the best overall form of any in here. Has looked untouchable this year, really. And my crazy play here is Chain of Love, the horse from Japan. We know how the Japanese horses have done really, really well at these international festivals for the past couple of years. Obviously, made a mark at the Breeders' Cup last year. And this horse is just one of those where, coming off of sort of a nondescript 7 furlong win at Chukyo in Japan. I mean, like, none of us follow that, right? Like, we don't know what
No.
that means, like what the Enif Stakes is. That means
No.
nothing to any of us. It was over a wet track on top of it, going 7 furlongs means nothing. But if you go back earlier in the year and you watch the replays of the race in Saudi Arabia and you watch the replay of the Golden Shaheen in Dubai, finishes third and fourth against really some of the best sprinters in the world in those races. And the way she closed in those races, I thought was just spectacular. So I was very impressed visually by what I saw from Chain of Love, William Buick up. And again, just the sort of recent trend of Japanese horses doing really well at these events has me excited. So my picks are number 8, Goodnight Olive, number 6, Chain of Love, and number 4, Cece. To recap, Jose, you are?
13, 1, and 2. I think Slammed has to go from that inside post. We'll see if she can get the extra furlong, but she's a legit New Mexico bred that belongs at this level. I think she deserves respect. So 13, 1, and 2 for me in the Philly Mare Sprint.
Spectacular. Ashley?
4 CC. I'm kind of flip flop between the 8 and the 13, but I go the 8 Goodnight Olive and the 13 Echo Zulu.
All righty. Jose, thank you for being patient. Appreciate you doing these races with us. Wish we were out there together. Maybe next year.
Yeah, I'll see you guys next year out here. Cheers. So we'll be exchanging some texts during the Breeders' Cup and trying to get on each other's ticket and see if we can cash some tickets.
Yes. Love it. Love it, man. See you soon, brother. Be well. Enjoy the weekend.
Yeah.
Good to see you, Dan. Ashley, have a good night. Talk to you later. Bye.
All right. Jose Contreras jumping in. Sarah, you're up. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So I got to say, this has been a long time in the making. I've been chasing Sarah down for over a year. You got to come on. You got to come, you got to be live with us one of these times. Sarah Obadwe, I hope I pronounced that correctly, right?
Well done, yes.
Close? Okay, good. Horse Racing Nation for, I believe, about a year now, right?
Almost, yeah. It'll be a year in January.
All right, doing some spectacular content. I've been watching you and Edward putting together some fine content throughout Breeders' Cup week. You can catch them on Horse Racing Nation and Sarah at Outrun the Odds on Twitter. Sarah, we didn't go easy on you here for your first appearance on ABR. We threw you right into the deep with the Turf Sprint Saturday Race 4. Talk to us. What do you like?
Yeah, I mean, every time we see Golden Pal race, it's that question of who are you going to try to beat him with? Because I feel like that's what everybody tries to do every time he shows up. And you haven't had success doing so yet. So for me personally, I've only tried to beat him once, and once was enough, and I've learned my lesson. So I do think that he is a very likely winner of this race. I know a lot of people are very interested in Highfield Princess, the number 6 horse coming over from Europe, and she certainly has the credentials to make some noise here. But if I'm looking for an alternative to a horse that I think is going to be in front, that is undefeated in the U.S., I don't necessarily want one that's a shorter price, who also has some early speed as well. So for a total crazy long shot pick, I actually like the 13 Cazadero a little bit. He actually just started running on the turf in his last 2 starts. And this was a horse that used to be in the Steve Asmussen barn that won his first 2 starts as a 2-year-old, one of those being the Bashford Manor. So he was a very precocious type. He ran okay after that. And then he took a little bit of a break. He comes back for a different trainer. He tries the turf for the first time at Saratoga this summer. And I mean, he totally missed the break and ended up finishing 3rd in there. He then goes up to Woodbine in a grade 2. And I mean, this horse is in last early, and that's not necessarily where you want to be in a turf sprint, but just seeing the turn of foot from him to close down the outside. And he was beating some good horses in there, Bound for Nowhere among one of them, who was the 4-5 favorite in that spot. He paid a generous 8-1 that day. Got a triple-digit buyer speed figure for that effort. Yet Flavian Pratt aboard. We don't love post 13, but I mean, if he's going to be one that's coming from off the pace, maybe he tucks in, saves ground, and there's going to be plenty of speed out in front of him.
I like it a lot. I really do. Cazadero is one of my best bets of the weekend, and so
Ooh,
you've
okay.
made the case. So I'm not even going to say anything. Ashley, the Woodbine circuit pretty well. You know, Silent Poet and Bound for Nowhere, who's also a Keeneland horse, but Cazadero ran by those two horses like they were standing still, and nothing else closed from the back. Like nothing closed. And to Sarah's point, this horse has been running on dirt, right? So now you have two races on turf, and they're both so much better than what we've seen, especially this most recent race. I don't know if you have any interest in that horse, but if not that one, who do you like?
Well, I do have interest in him. I'm gonna play a lot of trifectas in here as well, a couple tickets, and or maybe I'll just play one in here and just make it a higher base wager, because I think obviously the Golden Pal angle, and Sarah said it beautifully. You try to beat him, and you can't beat him, and especially over Keeneland, he's undefeated on the turf course, so it's tough. It's also tough to swallow the short price, but if you're trying to get prices underneath, I don't want to dilute maybe the top of my ticket by putting a bunch of horses that I don't really think can beat him. Cazadero, though, you mentioned that race last time out, I thought was a beautiful performance. And the trip that he got, Sarah alluded to, dead last, has to swing wide. You have to think about the ground that he traveled in the race. And the top two are very nice horses. Silent Poet for Nick Gonzalez, who was coming out of a race with a pretty bad trip. He ran a good race, but to see this horse just kind of get in those deeper waters. Even the race at Saratoga was a pretty good performance, similar thing. So there's going to be obviously pace for him to run at. We're probably going to see a similar thing in terms of he's going to be flying from off of it. He does have the outside draw. Wesley has a couple other horses in here, and maybe an unpopular opinion, I like Arrest Me Red, it is a tough pill to swallow that you go down to his last 4 races favored and only has 1 win to show for it. But I actually thought last time out at Kentucky Downs, going over that turf course, he ran pretty well, and he came from off of it. He's only beaten by a length and a quarter. He's going to have to face those top 2 again with Bran and Artemis City Limits, but I'm also thinking second off the layoff is key when you go through his past performances. Look when he won in May. It was second off the layoff. And you even go down further. We saw the same thing late last year in the fall when he kind of came to life after a bit of a freshening. So it's tough with, as I mentioned, he's been beaten as a favorite, but I think he's tactical. I like his post position in here because I think they'll have options as where to get him early. And Johnny V is going to climb aboard, which certainly isn't a bad thing as well. So I'm going to give him a slight nod over Cazadero, partially because of the post as well.
And look, we brought up this post here, but in this turf sprint in 2020, the last time, well, actually that was Glass Slippers. I'm thinking about 2015 Mongolian Saturday. Remember Mongolian Saturday? I remember Mongolian Saturday distinctly breaking from post 14. Mm-hmm. So not impossible. I'm 13 Cazadero, 8 Golden Pal, 3 Emiratiana, and then 7 Arrest Me Red. Ashley, you want to read off your numbers?
Yep, I am 8 Golden Pal, 7 Arrest Me Red, and then 13 Cazadero.
All right, Sarah?
8 Golden Pal, 6 Highfield Princess, and then 13 Cazadero.
All right, Highfield Princess. You gotta. I'm intrigued by that one. For now, I've left the horse off, but I may, by the time Saturday comes around, cave and use Highfield Princess. I mean, the horse is. Look, you can't question the the form in Europe. It's just, I don't know. I'm just. I don't want a short price on that horse. All right, let's move on. The Dirt Mile, Sarah, another really fun betting race. This is one where, as it turns out, this is, I think, one of the more wide open dirt races of the weekend. Pace scenario is, I think, a little bit of a mystery. You've got some horses who've shown speed and a couple who can go to the front but can also kind of sit just off of it. I don't know how you saw that developing, if that factored into your ultimate pick, but who do you like here?
Yeah, I mean, figuring out who's going to be in front early is, I think, something you always have to look at when you look at any race. But for this dirt mile specifically, they don't run this distance that often at Keeneland. So this is one, when I talked about this race with Jason Beam, he kind of pointed out that the run up is actually 70 feet. So they're 70 yards. So they're running a mile and 70 yards technically. And it's not all timed, but it's not like it's not happening. It's not imaginary ground that they're running. It's still something to consider for some of these horses that are shorter prices that are stretching out to distances that they haven't run yet, like Gunite, the number 5 horse, who is your second choice. So I'm taking a fade approach with him. This is also a distance. There's a significant bias where you don't want to be outside in this race. From post 8 out, only one horse has won at a mile in a very long time going this distance at Keeneland. So I took 8, 9, 10, and 11. I just drew a line through them and made my handicapping process a little bit easier. So I'm actually going to the number 3 Pipeline. So we're hoping for a little Flavian Pratt magic on Saturday because he's riding some horses that I like quite a bit. This one is 8-1 on the morning line. And I think his effort in the Forgo was a lot better than it might look, finishing third behind Cody's Wish and Jackie's Warrior, because he broke so quickly and he kind of looked Jackie's Warrior in the eye early on in that race. And I think you saw Joelle on Jackie take a look over and be like, wait a second, there's another horse over here. I have to actually ask my horse a little bit to go. And so for him to be on even terms with a horse like Jackie's Warrior early on, and it's not like he evaporated into thin air. I mean, he got tired a little bit, and then Cody's Wish came running on to steal the show and upset that field. But I like that Pipeline has won at a mile before where others have not. And if you go back to last year, Pipeline did actually finish ahead of Cody's Wish. Obviously, they're much better horses now, but just a fun fact to keep in mind.
Yeah, you mentioned that run up. To be clear, this is a solid 2-turn race. It's a 2-turn mile, so you do have those questions. Some of the horses stretching out, and to your point, I love when you can do something as simply as just I'm going to draw a line through all these horses. That makes this process so easy when there's like 8 million horses to handicap this weekend. I'm good with that.
Yep.
It may not work. It may not work, but you know what? Like, I'm going to go based on the data that I have in front of me. If my data says these horses really have such a minuscule chance of winning, I'm not going to worry about it. I like where you went with that. I also like where you went with Pipeline, who happens to be my top pick as well. This is no fun. We're just agreeing.
Yeah, I know. I'm catching everybody up on time for you. That's what I'm doing.
I appreciate that. Ashley, who do you like?
So I just think in terms of looking at the race, you mentioned it's kind of wide open. There's different directions you can go to. And I think a big thing is when you think about these horses, if they're coming out of 7/8 races, do you go a mile? Do you cut back? Who are you going to face in those races, and kind of making those decisions? And for me, just looking at all the horses, not focusing on post position at first, but I think Sarah's point is really valid, especially in this race. I go to the number 6 Laurel River is my top pick. I just thought, looking at the last 2 efforts for this horse to come out of the race at the end of July at Del Mar, and then in the Pat O'Brien, to beat horses like American Theorem, who's going to not take the shot in here and go in another spot because of distance. I thought the horse was pretty impressive. And obviously, if you like buyers, if you don't like them, look at your speed figures in general. I mean, it was a huge effort on paper and visually. Interesting rider change for Bob Baffert. Arad Ortiz Jr. set to ride this one. 2 tries at the mile have both been good. I think, Sarah kind of talked about the horse on the inside, Steve's horse, Gunite, has that 1 try at a mile, now has to go the mile and 70. I don't really love this horse as well. I don't actually mind the quick turnaround. This horse raced on October 22nd and ran as expected as the heavy favorite, but I just don't like that horse on the stretch out when I have other horses that might be cutting back slightly or have been proven at a mile. I don't think a mile and 70 is out of the reach of Laurel River. Cody's Wish, another one. I really love the last 2 efforts from Cody's Wish. I think the race at Churchill, was a little bit closer to the pace than we saw last time out and handled it well. And the pace was certainly good enough for him to get the job done. And he beat 3 Technique, not by a lot. And then Jackie's Warrior last time out finishes second, but it was at the 7/8 distance at Saratoga. There's a lot to like about Cody's Wish. And we always talk about the handicapping angle as well. One of the great storylines of this Breeders' Cup to mention, all of the content I've seen on social media and the different things. It's a really heartwarming story when you learn more about, Cody's Wish and the name.
Yeah, I mean, I don't love 5-2 on the horse, but nothing would make me happier from from the position of somebody who tries to promote the sport and who tries to tell all the fun stories in the sport and the great stories in the sport, I think that would be just a spectacular story. It's already a great story. So I mean, the horse doesn't have to win this race for the sake of our bank accounts. But if the horse wins, I will be happy. Sarah, run through your numbers for us for the people just jumping in.
It's going to be number 3, Pipeline on top. Yes, Cody's Wish, number 7 in second, and we'll go number 6, Laurel River in third.
Ashley?
6, Laurel River. 7, Cody's Wish. And a bit of a price, the number 10, Senor Buscador.
I like that. All right. A little bit of a price there. The 3, Pipeline for me. I like Laurel River a lot. Ashley, I'm with you on that. 6 horse. And then Simplification, a horse we didn't talk about. This is one who's been in against some of the best 3-year-olds in the country all year. Gets the cutback. I think this horse has been begging for a cutback. Won his only time at this distance. So I think Simplification is going to run a big race and draws inside. Should get a great trip. I'd probably put Cyberknife 4th. I wouldn't be surprised if Cyberknife hit the board, but I think he'll have to carve out a trip. So I'm not entirely in love with Cyberknife. Sarah, it is so great to have you on. I hope we can kind of make this a more, common thing. We want you on. You're spectacular.
Yeah, anytime. Where to contact me. It's nice to finally see you two face to face, even though it is through a camera, and connect with you both. So I appreciate the offer.
Thanks for jumping on.
All right, Sarah. Good luck the rest of the week. We will catch you soon.
Bye.
Bye. All right. We move on to Canada. Sherry, how you doing?
Hi.
Welcome in. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Very good. We picked this first race for you for a specific reason. I'm sure you had no idea why. Filly and Mare Turf. Do you know why we picked this race for you?
I'm pretty sure I do, and I think that there's a lot that we're going to have to unpack when we're discussing this one. So,
Well, like how you're not going to bet Moira? Tell us more.
no, I am going to bet Moira, and I think that there's a lot of very interesting ways that you can go in this race. I think this is probably one of the toughest races of the weekend, in my opinion. And as soon as I saw the field come out, I got so excited because whoever wins this race is really going to have to work for it. And I was over the moon that Moira drew post 12. I think that's the absolute perfect spot for her. I know we have the jockey change. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But Moira is going to be at the back of the pack, and she's gonna make a run. That's what she's gonna do. And the only thing that my concern was the pace factor and how it's going to shape up. But now that Lady Spitespear has drawn inside with going to Vegas, I can see how the scenario will work in her favor. And I think she's just going to come running as hard as she can down the lane. And I think she's got a very good shot. She's going to have to work for it. Don't get me wrong. But I know that there's going to be a lot of us up here cheering her on, especially because there was so much discussion after what happened last out in the EP Taylor.
Now, let me ask you a question. Is Ed DeRosa trolling everybody by saying Moira's like his bet? Or is he serious about that?
No, I think he's serious. I mean, he was here for Queen's Plate, and,
He fell in love.
Her performance was really eye-catching, and I know it's one thing to see it on the TV, and it's the Tapeta surface, and visually, you know how it is when you visually have a race that sticks out in your mind, and you were there, Dan. Like literally, we were like, that's and for people that weren't there, maybe they don't. I know it's Tapeta and it's the Queen's Plate, and so maybe they don't. There's a little bit of a discrepancy on who she beat and all of that kind of stuff. Every single horse almost out of that Queen's Plate has come back to win. Okay. So I think
we invited you on to make the case. So don't backpedal now. You've made the case, Moira. We're okay with it. Ashley, what do you think?
I mean, I like Moira a lot. Not my top pick in here, but I think Sherry kind of hit the nail on the head too. I obviously wasn't on hand this year for the plate, but to see what she was able to do in those 3 consecutive races, She looked to me to get better and better. Obviously, her margin of victory was smaller, but she was against the boys in the Queen's Plate. And I thought it was a great performance. I know from there, they were debating, are we going to go for a grade 1 race in the U.S.? Are we going to go to the Prince of Wales? And Sherry also commented on and kind of like the horses that race in the Queen's Plate. Surf for sure, obviously, unfortunate circumstances, but both rider and horse were okay in the Prince of Wales, but then goes on to the Breeder Stakes. So I thought it was a pretty competitive bunch of horses for the 3-year-old horses up at Canada. And then there is all of the controversy or the talk, as Sherry said nicely, about the last race. I mean, I thought she ran a really great race. I do think she got into trouble. I don't think it was necessarily completely avoidable, kind of looking at how the race was run. And I do think, that's pretty impressive from her because she did get on the turf. I think looking at the distance, 1.25 miles, she handled it beautifully. So this distance, there's no concern about. We knew she was going to get the distance. The turf was really the question. I thought she ran a huge race, and unfortunate for the Connections to be disqualified and placed 8th. And I'm just curious, Sherry, the rider change to Frankie Dettori. How do you feel about it?
I think it's a great rider change. I mean, I feel bad for our local jockey, but this is on the grand stage. So, you know what I mean? You want to give your horse the best opportunity that you can to win. And let's be honest, there's a lot of European invaders that tend to, do very well. I like that they got Frankie because I think he might have more insight as to a lot of these other horses than probably a lot of our jockeys would have had. So to me, I don't, I understand the change and they want to give more every single chance that they can. Frankie's also riding their other horse that they have, Last Call. So I think it's a positive thing. And I mean, it's Frankie, right? So
Right.
how can we not be happy about that?
100%. I agree with that.
The thing that sticks out for me the most is he should know those European horses. And that's what I really, really like about it because he's going to know what he has under him and whether he's can compete.
It's a really great point about it. And two, I think, Raphael's been still getting on the horse in the mornings too. And we know how this works on the biggest stage. And I agree. I think it's an interesting move. We know Frankie's also coming to the US now and going to, looks like he's going to spend the winter here. So Moira's intriguing. I'm just curious to see what we're going to get in terms of odds.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the horse will take some support, but at the end of the day, this is a what I like to call a Euro Chad race. It's either Euros or Chad. The last American horse to win this race, trained by anyone other than Chad, was Perfect Shirl, and that was in 2011. So the odds of a horse,
the Woodbine horse,
exactly.
I had Perfect Shirl that day, so I'm hoping.
As did I. Like, I'm not saying like I would not disqualify a horse coming in from Woodbine just based on that. I will say it's funny though when I think about Starship Jubilee. You remember a couple of years ago, dumped the rider from the 1 post, and I don't think it's ideal to draw inside in this race because the way that the gate set up for this 1 3/16, you're behind the turn, right? So I mean, you're behind the rail, and watching that, the horse might have just taken a bad step out of the gate. But also might have just kind of been spooked by the fact that he was gonna she was gonna run right into the freaking rail, right? Because it's right up against it. So I don't like the inside post here. The inside post, but say if you're a good enough horse, you're gonna be fine. In this case, it's Lady Spitesphere who has some speed, and going to Vegas, who's the other speed. So I think it's intriguing because you do have a lot of speed drawn to the inside. We'll see how that plays out. There could be some maneuvering out of the gate. The horse that I landed on is Tuesday, by the way, the 5 horse. I think this horse is just spectacular. You may not see it just looking at the PPs, finished 6th last out and then 4th in the race before, but this one finished 2nd to Alpinista, who won the Arc. So this was 3 races ago, and if you look at the replays of the last 2 races, this horse is always up against a pace scenario that is in no way beneficial. Travels wide, doesn't get anything to run into, and in this race, she's going to get more pace than she's ever gotten to run into. She's going to get firm ground, which she 100% prefers. Those 2 races, the 6th and 4th place finish in Europe in those Group 1 races, both over soft ground. Wants firm ground, has really run with the best horses in Europe, and on top of it, she's going to get a pace setup. So I see 8-1 on the morning line. This is one of my best bets of the weekend, Tuesday, the 5-horse. But I do think, speaking, because this is a Euro Chad race, the 11-horse in Italian is the fastest horse in the race, is going to clear to the lead, and she's going to be on the front for a very long time. She could hold on. She could hold on and win. She's 7-2 on the morning line. Those are my top two. Ashley, who are your top two? Or three? Or four?
You go with the Aidan O'Brien. I'm not going to go with the other Aidan O'Brien. I'm going to go with the Joseph O'Brien horse to the inside of Tuesday. I really like the number 4 above the curve. Looking at her races, showing that one race as a 2-year-old and then those 5 starts this year. I thought last time out at Longchamp, I know the ground was softer, and you kind of go down the past performance from her. The ground's going to be maybe the biggest question I have about her because she's kind of gotten softer ground throughout. But she almost beat Nashua. So I feel like if you like the 3 last time out, you got to look at her. And then I dug more in her races and just looked at kind of the trips that she's gotten going 1.25 miles. And I thought she's been gritty in her last 3 or 4. I mean, she's really done nothing wrong in her career. I like seeing Johnny in the irons for this one. You can kind of see they've been collaborating a little bit. I know Joseph O'Brien had a couple horses here stateside in the last couple months. And I just keen on that last race. I thought she ran really well, and she just missed for second. I just thought it was a game effort. So it's tough. I mean, I do think looking at this race, the Euros caught my eye the most. You mentioned in Italian. I agree. It's probably going to be on the lead in here. The question for me was the distance a little bit. You mentioned the speed. I just think these other horses are going to have that late turn of foot. That not that she hasn't won in gate to wire going 2 turns. This is just a bit different ball game for her. I tried to look at some price horses in here. I looked at Family Way for a little bit. I just couldn't get over her resume and just seeing her 1 win this year. I don't think she faced the best horses. I also went to her outside Rougier. That was probably the next maybe price horse I was going to look for a minor piece. 12-1, assuming she's even close at those odds, is another horse. You know, if she ends up winning the EP Taylor, we talked about the unfortunate circumstances for Myra. I thought it was a good effort. It was better than what we saw from her in New York and Kentucky. Again, though, you wonder what that race would have been like for all of the contenders, not just Moira, had it been cleanly run in the stretch.
Yep. Sherry, before we move on to the next race, we need more than just Moira. We need your top 3 picks here. Who you got?
Well, actually, Ashley touched on my other one. I did decide to put Family Way in second. I know the Euros are always going to be horses you have to look at, but I'm just trying to kind of find that price, and it's probably going to be one of the. I have 2 Euros in for second or for third and for fourth, but Family Way, I don't know, for some reason I feel like she's sitting on a big race. The distance, she's been 6 out of 8 at the distance, so to me, I know that she can get it. She's going to need everything to go perfect her way. And I'm just hoping that maybe this will be her time. I mean, second, third, second. I know she only does have the 1 win, but you know what? Sometimes that doesn't really matter. All they need is to have the best race that day, and they can come out on top. And if, you know, I love that Gaffleone is on her. He's been on her many times in the past. He knows her. He should be able to be in the thick of things. Will she be good enough? I guess that's the question we need to find out. But at 20-1, absolutely, I will put her on my tickets. Moira, obviously, I'm hoping for a clean run. I just want to see what she can do. I'm going to bet her. She's going to be my play in there. But I also do like Tuesday as well as Nashua. So I think Moira's going to have to run down Nashua. That's how I'm looking at it. And in Italian, I think she's going to get a little bit of pace pressure, and it may just be her downfall.
Okay, so Moira, Family Way,
12,
Nashua,
8,
and Tuesday.
Right. 12, 8, 3, 5.
All right, I like it. Let's move on to race 7 on Saturday. It is the sprint. The sprint. And speaking of sprint, we got a sprint to the finish here. We are so far behind, Sherry. It is not your fault. Actually, Ren was doing so well, and then we teed her up, and then she went off on a tangent for about 10 minutes. That
I was listening.
Set all this into motion. But it was our fault because she really did make good time, and then we kind of teed her up we set her up for failure. So in the sprint, let's keep it pretty simple. Is Jackie's Warrior going to lose?
I can't really see it myself. I mean, you know, the only other horse that I really took a look in here was at Kamari. I mean, if anybody goes with Jackie's Warrior, will anyone be brave enough to go with Jackie's Warrior? That's always the question, right? I mean, is anybody else going to sacrifice their horse to try to beat him or to, but when I look at Kamari, she's got 2 wins over the Keeneland surface. She's 2 for 2 at the distance. I don't know. I'm going to use her underneath, but I think it's really tough against Jackie's Warrior. I'll try to I'll put a couple bombs underneath. I like Elite Power. Maybe Elite Power can squeak in there.
Mute button. I'm with you on Elite Power. A real progressive type. Gets the acid test here, obviously, after 4 straight wins. But I think this is one who has the ability to lie closer, has the ability to
close.
Or can close. So kind of has shown both. But if the pace does not develop, I think this is one who could sit right behind Super Ocho and Jackie's Warrior and just do do what he has to do. So I like Elite Power a lot. Flash of Mischief kind of looked a little sneaky to me. But again, it's all reaching here. I think Jackie's Warrior is going to be tough. The wild card is Super Ocho. Super Ocho is fast. Super Ocho could make Jackie's Warrior work. He's drawn inside. He's not going to yield that lead early. Super Ocho could make Jackie's Warrior work, and whether or not that makes a difference, I don't know. But I think just looking at Super Ocho's replays, looking at the splits of all his previous races, I think it certainly make Jackie's Warrior work. Do you think any of that matters, Ashley, or is it just JW?
I think it's Jackie's Warrior. I have a tough time trying to think, picturing a scenario where any of these other horses win. The one horse I'm curious about, again, I don't think this is from a win standpoint, but I'm curious to see what Aloha West is going to do. This was a horse that I really liked last year and obviously going to try to, defend the title in the Breeders' Cup Sprint, but had that long layoff, kind of regrouped, started at Churchill in the Grade 1 and couldn't beat Jackie on that day. And maybe you can say, okay, well, first off the long layoff, it is Jackie's Warrior. Okay, but I guess the next race, what do you make an excuse for? My excuse would be at a mile. Last time out, 6.5. In the Kelly's Landing, 1 as expected, not the saltiest of bunches. So I'm just wondering now, only making that 4th start off the year, the 6 furlong distance is his jam. We know that he's really proven at that distance. It's just now we haven't seen him again since July. On the layoff, it's just a different sort of progression of getting him here as a 5-year-old. This 4-year-old campaign was a lot smoother. Didn't have those gaps that we saw now. And I agree that he needed a break probably after the race at Del Mar. He ran a heck of a race, and I'm all for that. But I don't know. I could see a case where he runs, maybe not what he ran last year, but where he runs a better race than we've seen from him so far. So I'm curious to see what he'll do with his first start back since July. You mentioned Elite Power. I think this horse is just really intriguing just looking at his last 2 efforts. I mean, these are big races. He got a bit of a test last time out, but I don't think it was a huge test. I think this is really going to be what kind of makes or breaks it for him in terms of seeing what sort of horse he is. But I like the progression with him. They weren't in a rush to necessarily get him to the races as a 3-year-old. And I'm curious about him. But for me, it's Jackie's Warrior here, which changes it from a betting standpoint. Because I think when you heard Mark Delo talk earlier about you have to figure out your bets. And these are the races where I have to decide, is it worth it if I'm not playing a multi-race sequence? Is it worth it to come up with something? Do I think the return's going to be there, or do I just kind of enjoy the race, which I think Breeders' Cup, I saw someone tweet this and I wish I knew which the account was. You don't have to fire at every race. You can treat this as a normal day, and I'm going to choose and pick my spots a little accordingly. And I'm not sure what I'll do on this race if I do wager on it.
You only have to fire if you have the kind of issues I have. So I'll be firing.
That is true.
At every single race.
That this race follows the filly and mare turf where you can go deep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right?
Where I'll lose all my money, not betting on Moira. So I'm 9-6, 11-8 here. Jackie's Warrior, Elite Power, Flash of Mischief, CZ Rocket. Going over your numbers, Ashley, I think you're 9-6 as well to start, right?
I'm actually going to go 9-5-6. I'm going to go because I think there's going to be more value.
Aloha West. You're making John Piasek happy. Maryland bred. Squeeze them in there. Sherry, who are your top 3?
9-2-6.
9-2-6. Getting Kamari in the combo.
I'm going to give her a little bit of a shot.
What's that?
I'm going to give Kamari a little bit of a shot.
I like it. Sherry, sorry this was so rushed. I hope we get to see you soon and enjoy a full day of handicapping with you, more so than the rushed whatever we gave you there, 17 minutes or so.
That's all right. I appreciate you guys having me on, and I wish you all the best this weekend.
All right. We'll see you soon. Thanks, Sherry.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Now, I wouldn't normally steal somebody's jokes, but I know this guy has so many in the bag. So he let us know that while he was waiting, he actually grew this beard. So I will steal the joke.
And
Mr. Bill Starkey, welcome to the show.
can you hear me fine?
Oh, we hear you, brother. We hear you. Thank you for
As you can
waiting.
see,
How you doing?
I'm technically challenged, so I'm looking that way. You're probably looking that way. When you bring the old people on, just you can hear me, you can see me. That's all that matters.
Hey, old people. Yeah, enough of all that. You bring the energy always. If you don't follow Bill on Twitter, if you
I
don't,
don't blame you.
if it doesn't stick out to you right away, you're like, I don't know this guy. Well, if you know all the emoji stories, by the way, have you retired the emoji stories? Are those not
I have.
happening anymore?
Twitter Shorts has been retired. It had a great run.
They did have a great run. You remember those, Ashley, Twitter shorts?
I do.
It was so good, so good. All right, well, we kept you waiting long enough. The floor is yours, sir. The mile, race 8 Saturday.
Great race. As my wife tells me, as I'm on this broadcast, I have to use my outside voice, not my inside voice. So I'm going to be nice.
I told you. He's got a whole list. He's going to run through all of them.
I'm going to run through all. That's right. So great race, right? And I don't know how you want me to do this, right? So my thought here is that Chad has a bravado and a brashness about him. He really and truly does. And I think this horse in this race epitomizes that if he can get this done, right? I think he will strut to the interview like a proud peacock. I really and truly do. I really and truly do. I mean, and just, like that, what's that?
Can you do an impression? Would you like to stand up and just do an impression
No, I don't
of
have
what
to
it
do
would
it.
look like?
You come out like, who's the Vince McMahon? Vince McMahon. That's how he will go to and just like what I tell you, right? So domestic spending. I mean, there is no pace that he cannot get it done in, right? It's just remarkable what he can do, and I think he's brought him back in the mile specifically because he wants some really significant heat up front, so he can really do his thing from no matter where it is he goes. Now, 14, huge problem, right? He's got to try and find some saving the ground on that first turn somewhere along the way. But if he can save a little bit and he can get a clear path, you look for him inside the 16th pole is all I can say, because this is just outside the realm of what Chad would normally do with a horse. He has listen, they could have retired him. They could have brought him back in many other spots, and they choose to do this, right? So I just think the whole thing kind of sets up, and he's certainly by all means more than qualified. So I give him a big chance. I think Todd has a very, very talented 3-year-old in Annapolis. Incredibly tactical horse. One that clearly in the last race approved didn't need the lead, right? And I think that bodes well with horses like Beyond Brilliant and like Straight, who are just going to go. So I think he's like second level, but not very far off, getting first run on horses like Domestic Spending and maybe some of the Euros. So I think he's an interesting play in this race as well. I think I tweeted you today, Dan, on I'm not a fan of Dream Loper. I think there is something about just those two races sticking out at Longchamps on soft courses. I gotta take an angle, and I think that might be just a horse for course, and it wound up setting up well because after that, on paper she looks rather ordinary, right? She doesn't look that great when you remove those particular two races. Ivar, I'm not a fan of. 1 for 10 since 2020, has never won a race off Lasix. Coming late, but probably not getting it done. One of those particular horses. I do like Kinross. I thought, is that the name? Did I get that correct?
Yep, you got it.
Yeah, I thought, really good form. Another tough draw though, the 13 hole. Another tough place, but seems to do well on all surfaces and probably has. I'm not a big form number, but best time form numbers out of all the Euros coming over here today. And of course, Modern Games is good. I don't know what to do with the races against Baid. I mean, that horse was just so good when he was facing him. And he comes back and does the typical the Woodbine romp, and then goes to Ascot, and it's almost like he didn't even care about Ascot, right? He just raced him. It's almost like a workout for him. So I obviously think he's part of it. I think Order of Australia is off his game. I won't be using him at all. And I do think Chad has a big shot with Regal Glory too. I think she's like an Annapolis type. I really do. I think she'll be right off that immediate speed. Todd and her going, and Chad and Modern Games, some of the other guys coming from off of it. So if you ask me to rank them from a wagering standpoint, I think Chad's probably going to provide the most value at the 14 hole. I really truly do. So I may wind up leaning there, along with Todd, Regal Glory, and probably Modern Games.
You sure you don't want to give post 12 a shout? I mean, you hit 11 through 14.
But hey, listen, when I come on your show, I got to be thorough. I mean, it's like I can't fool around here. I mean, I won't get invited back on.
No, I'm playing. I was giving Ashley crap earlier, but
she does great work. She's very thorough. She tries to get through the entire post parade, all the fields, give you a little tidbit on everything. I'm in top company here.
We're basically moving in slow motion here. We're doing what was supposed to be a 2-hour show. It's going to turn into a 2.5-hour show minimum. And Ashley's sitting here like these amateurs that I've got to deal with. So, Ashley, how about you? How do you see this race unfolding?
So I'm not going to start in the order of where I'm landing. I'll get to that in a second, but I'll start with Modern Games because there's the talk also. I love Twitter for a lot of reasons. And I agree with people. Is Modern Games as a 3-year-old what we saw as a 2-year-old? And obviously I think you mentioned Baid and the waters he's been in, different story. I also think his road to the Breeders' Cup is a different story because when he came over here last year, he had the race at Newmarket in late September, and then he came here. And this is a different move to come to Canada in middle of September, ship back, which he handled quite well, and now shipping back. There's some confidence I would think from Charlie Appleby here to do that on a horse. They don't think it's as strenuous as maybe going to Dubai and back and coming off that rest, but that's still a lot of travel on this horse. And I thought seeing that he performed well last time out was a positive sign. I'm not going to use him on top. My thunder's been stolen a little bit. I like Ken Ross. I don't know what it is about post position 13 at Breeders' Cup, but I need it like most races on Friday and Saturday. So please say some prayers for me. But Ken Ross, I think as a 5-year-old is better than as a 4-year-old. And I like when these horses kind of progress a little later in their career, and he's a gelding. So it's been fun to watch him race later in his career, but he's on a win streak, which I talk about this. I don't care if it's a $5,000 claimer or a grade 1. It's tough to keep those going on these horses because they're running really solid efforts each time out. I will say, I think he's intriguing at this distance because when you look at his last efforts, 7/8 and more recently 3/4, but he's been kind of comfortable and they've been kind of nice wins for him. So I'm not concerned with the stretch out. I know he is 0-for-2 at the distance, but I think looking at him this year compared to other times when he's gone slightly over 7 furlongs, I think he's a different animal this year. And I'm really excited to kind of see him come stateside. I have a lot of hopes for him. Domestic spending, I can't get over the post position. I mean, you've seen some of the interviews with Chad, and that's not what you want when you're bringing this horse that clearly, as you've kind of alluded to, they have high hopes for him. They brought him back off this crazy layoff, and it's even crazier when you look at his last race, right? Sadly, it was at Arlington Park. We haven't seen him since then, and he's training like, amazing. You see his works, and we've seen video of him, but I just can't use him in here. Annapolis, I feel like because I like Major Dude and I've seen them train together and kind of their styles of what we've seen so far are similar, at least what we've seen those last two from Annapolis, I have some intrigue in him. I agree. I don't know if he's quite this level, but he's beaten, the horses that Bill doesn't like really. Ivar in Order of Australia. So make what you want out of that. But so for me, I'm going to 13, Ken Ross. I am going to go to the 11 Annapolis. I just think there's some intrigue there. I'm curious to see the price. That's another thing I'm rooting for, I guess, Todd and Irad throughout the 2 days a little bit as well. And then I'll use Modern Games. Like I said, I think the shipping angle is interesting, but when he's come here, he's been ready to roll. So I think the connections really obviously think it's not going to play a toll on him at all.
And Bill mentioned that stat on Ivar. The other interesting stat in Order of Australia, like not to beat up on these horses, 13 times he's raced at a mile. He's won once, and I think we all remember that one, but one win in 13 tries at a mile. Happened to be at the biggest race of his life. So, there's that.
And Aiden's record, right?
And Aiden, exactly. Look, this is an interesting race. I actually landed on Dream Loper, as Bill mentioned. I just think the horse is in great form, settles pretty nicely in her races. She's like ideally drawn for this mile. I think she's going to sit a really nice trip. But yes, the sort of the firm ground is a bit of a concern. And I thought the 9 horse Malavat ran a sneaky good race behind Kinross last out in that race in France. Kick, I thought, best of all late, going 7 furlongs. So, we'll see, what she's like at a mile. And was second in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf last year. And so, I think she makes a big statement here. Malabat is a horse that maybe not being talked about as much as you would think. Tyler up, and I like Malabat a bit. The 1 horse I do want to mention is the 7, Beyond Brilliant. There's not a whole lot of pace in this race. I mean, there's Smooth Like Straight down on the inside. Well, I guess the 5 post. And then you got Beyond Brilliant with quite a bit of speed. And it's one of those where, I mean, we've seen Victor do this on occasion. I mean, he can get a horse to the front and settle a horse down. And I don't know if the horse is going to win, but I think the horse goes a long way on the front end. Bill, I'll only throw this out there because I know you're a historian and a student of the game. Did you know that it has been 20 or 30 years? Oh boy, it's been 30 years since a horse won this race on the front end. Do you remember who that horse was?
Lord?
There you go. So, not since Lore, 30 years ago. Okay, I shouldn't curse. But damn, we are old. That was 30 years ago. What is going on? That was 30 years ago since a horse won.
That's a hell of a horse, too.
Right? 30 years ago. Okay, so there's that.
And Chad trying to do the Michael Dickinson with DeHaas, right?
Yes. Yep. I mean, Jesus. Yeah, no, we are just old. We are absolutely old. I'm thinking, oh, good Lord. Okay, let's recap the numbers. Your horse numbers and your horses. Top 3. Who you got, Bill?
For me, I'm for value, I'm going 14, 11, and what's modern games? 4. 14, 11, 4.
All right, Ashley?
13, 11, 4.
There you go.
Okay, I am 9. Oh, 3, 9, and 7. And then 4th. I'm going to throw in a 4th one. 3, 9, 7, 4. So 3, 9, 7, 4 for me. All right. One more for you, Bill.
All right.
It's an easy one.
It is.
It's the distaff. Who you got?
So this was my my Todd toss up here. There is not a whole lot. There's not a whole lot of speed in this race at all. I'm scratching my head as to where the last 2 races for the Asmussen horse came from. As long as he's sent, which I expect it to be, I think he just actually goes right to the lead. Now, all the other ones are all quite tactical early, but they don't. You can just look. There might be 1-1 on the DRF PPs between all the other ones at the half-mile pole. I mean, there's just nobody who wants to lead in this group. Okay, and this is the only one who's clearly been there. So they're all, so me, I'm what's this? So in the old, New York days, Dan, I got the pajamas number here, tops and bottoms, 1 and 8.
I like it. Yeah, and I'm almost entirely on board. It sounds weird, but I'm definitely on board with society. But I think this horse is. I mean, if you haven't seen the Cotillion, go back and watch that replay. The way Florent Giroux rode that horse was like, I can go as fast as I want. These horses are not touching me. And I think he's going to do the same, or he, as in Florent, is going to do the same thing aboard her society in this race.
Right.
And Malathat, I had 3 for 3 over the course. This is the sweet spot. We'll get it. We'll get the trip from the rail. We'll just tip out late. And
I think because there's really not anybody else going crazy for the lead, he'll get any trip he wants, right?
Yeah.
And that's because he's smart enough to do that. Assuming she gets out of the gate normally, he could probably take any trip he wants with her, right? If 2 go, fine, I'll sit 3rd. If 3 go, fine, I'll sit 4th.
Exactly. Exactly.
And he's just going to make sure he has a clean run and just doesn't get buried down there. So he's going to go out and and do what he's got to do, but then he'll make sure he takes her off the wood.
Exactly. Now, if they do chase Society, if you see like a multiple horse chase of Society, Clarier has to bounce back. I don't know what the heck happened in the personal ensign. I mean, I know the horse I think hit the gate or whatever coming out, but Clarier's got to bounce back. I mean, she's just better than that, and I think
Agreed.
she could run into a big share. It could finish second here, or at the very least third. Ashley, what do you think?
Oh man, you just teed that up for me. I honestly, this is going to sound like, again, like, nothing against Clarier. I was not a huge fan of her earlier this year. I just wasn't. Looking at some of the horses that she faced, we already discussed. I like Cece. I like Cece's chances in her race, and some of the other horses I liked better. But kind of later in New York in the spring and summer, I started to kind of look at her more, and I said, she's a serious filly. She's really talented. I do think she has to bounce. Saratoga, obviously the personal ensign you mentioned. It even says in the run line, which sometimes you got to go watch. She was a hot mess express for that race. And they have not raced her since then. And I've, read some of the articles, and Steve has been quoted, they take pride in their horses behaving on race day and having those things. And they've made sure that they've done everything to ensure that she's that way. And I'd be more concerned if it was a thing that we saw all the time from her, or, every couple of races, but to me, it's a one-off. I'm going to give her an excuse for that. And I don't mind that she doesn't have a closer prep race, unlike other horses have been in here, because she's been proven off a layoff.
Yeah.
I do have concern about the pace, though. You guys talking about the 8 in here, Society, pretty freaking fast in those last 2 races and made it look easy. The one thing I will say, I don't know at Charlestown and even at Parks. I mean, she did beat Secret Oath. She's facing a saltier group, in my opinion, today. But, she's shown that she can go gate to wire, and she's made it look easy. Florent was a boarder at Parks, so I like seeing him back aboard. Looking at others in here, we haven't talked about the morning line favorite, Nest, who pretty dazzling in her last 3 races. Even I thought when you go back to the Belmont, she ran a really good race against the boys. You can't knock her for that. I don't think it's the most competitive Belmont that we've seen in maybe prior years. It's tough when horses decide if they're going to go in from the Derby into the Preakness, if they're just going to wait, especially now with all the options that you have in the summer and what the long-term goals are for connections, especially with the boys. A lot has to do with the breeding after their 3 or 4 year old years. So she's been very talented. She's been close to the pace in those races, but at 1.25 miles and 1.125. You look at someone like Society, they're shorter races. She's been going faster and been able to prevail. So I'm torn. I am going to go with Clarier on top. I found this to be an extremely challenging race. And the only other horse I want to touch upon, and it was interesting, I believe it was from DRF, Mike Welch had talked about kind of the horse's training, and one horse that he hasn't seen race, I believe, but has seen train, who's been interesting, is Blue Stripe. Seeing this horse on the track since coming to Kentucky. I mean, she does have a really nice work coming into this. The hopes were high when she comes here and goes into the barn and just says, yeah, we're going to the Breeders' Cup Distaff. And it didn't pan out, but they gave her that time off, and she's been very good on the West Coast. I thought her win last time out was really impressive, and she was one that was close to that pace, and that pace was decent to me. So I'm curious about her. Hector Barrios rode her last time. I'm going to have that Breeders' Cup mount. So I'm going to use her kind of in the bottom of my exotic tickets, but for me, Clarier on top. I'm going to go next to actually Society and Nest. I'm kind of torn on what to do there because I think they're very different fillies.
Yeah, listen, if I could say one thing, then I think the way Ashley said it really, because of the devoid of the early speed, it really is this is really a rider's race, right? If they let Asmussen's horse go because they think they're all better than her, chances are they're not going to catch her, right? Because if he saves a quarter somewhere, right, and then some of them take their own horse out of their game, they're not going to have anything left at the end. So it's going to be quite interesting because there just doesn't seem to be a whole lot of moves. I think everybody is set in their ways and want their position where they want it. The question is, what's his pace going to look like? And plus, that racetrack is good. I hope it's the same, but I think it's going to be glaringly different on Friday and Saturday. It's been so slow, right? And it's going to be a different racetrack. Considering the weather's good and such. So that's going to play into it too. So people coming up to the 9th race, watch what's happened all day, right? And wager accordingly.
That's a really good point. In terms of pace, I mean, the one horse in here who we didn't mention, who I think could be a little bit of a pace factor, is a bomb coming in. Awake at Midnight has flash speed occasionally. Again, that's just that occasionally, and it's out west. But it's a horse. I mean, you're looking at a horse here, Philly, who could maybe go, I don't know, 23 and change, and maybe apply some token pressure or something like that, right? I mean, nobody's going to really go with Society. Society's going to be loose, and the question is, does she catch any breather at all? If she does, I think she wins easily. If somehow someone in here, and maybe search results. I mean, search results is not exactly a horse who likes to let a pace setter run loose on the front end, right? They always got search results right there. On the horse's back end.
I think it's probably her or Nest who puts a little pressure on Society, in all honesty.
Yeah. And with Nest, and maybe some history that Society has to overcome, only 4 horses in the past 17 years that have won this race have been 3-year-olds. So largely older horses win this race historically. The horses who are 3-year-olds have won this race have been all spectacular horses, standout superstars. And certainly Nest is that. I mean, she fits the profile of a horse who could potentially win this race as a 3-year-old, but it does favor older horses. And so again, a bit of history there that, especially without the seasoning, a horse like Society is going to have to overcome, but she looks so freaking fast. I mean, I think we're all in agreement she's going to be tough to beat. And Sierre for Ashley, the 4-horse, Society, the 8-horse, and then we talked about Nest, the 6-horse, and then Mailloux, which is another one that Bill likes here, the 1-horse down on the rail. Bill, I miss you, brother.
I know. I haven't seen you since last year's Breeders' Cup.
I miss you, man. I do miss you. And seeing you here is kind of making me sentimental. I'm drinking the White Claws. I'm like, we should be eating dinner somewhere.
You don't write. I mean, God forbid you come to Florida. The weather's horrible at this time of year.
I know. Well, hopefully we'll see you. We'll see you in January.
Yeah, come down. You're going to open up that turf course in December. It should be nice. It should be green for the first time. Real green grass.
I saw it last week. It is green. It is very green. It looks spectacular. I'm actually still in Florida right now. I'm going to be departing here in a couple months and moving somewhere, a location to be determined. But the turf course looks absolutely stellar.
It does. Looks phenomenal.
Yeah. She's timed her move at the exact moment of the championship meet starting. She's like, championship meet, I'm out. Goodbye. No more. No, I'm kidding. Ashley loves the championship meet. Big fan of championship meet. Anyway, Bill Starkey through the bridle. Catch him on Twitter. Bill, I hope to see you in person soon. I truly miss you, brother.
Likewise.
It's so great to have you on.
Ashley, good to see you. Nice to meet you. Appreciate the invite. Best of luck, everybody.
All right. We'll see you soon. Good luck this weekend. All right. Patience. This poor man. Look at this. His energy is so strong. He took over the top spot.
Well, first I want to say, the last time myself and Dan were together, we were wearing the same blue coat by the same jacket maker. So I had to make sure I changed that up for today.
Yeah.
Second of all, I'm going to try to weave in something from each guest that we've had previously. So I like Blazing Sevens in the juvenile. I'm just going to randomly give the juvenile winner out.
Who is the 6-horse? Just to be clear.
The 6-horse, Blazing Sevens, juvenile on Friday. Just giving that out. The last time the three of us were together, we were watching Jose drink Topo Chicos at the Breeders' Cup last year. So I'm going Modelo for today. So cheers, everybody. And we've got 2 races left. And I think there's one race we're really going to focus on. And there's one race we're going to kind of try to put on the side here.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously the one we're going to focus on, 'cause it's such a difficult race, is the Classic. So let's quickly blow through the turf. Who's your single in the turf?
Yeah, my single in the turf. That's a great joke, Dan. I think when we're talking about this, we've got to start with the Godolphin runners, and you've kind of got the tale of 2 completely different paths to get here. You look at Rebels Romance, who is 3-1 on the morning line. This is a horse that was really, really strong at Maidan last year on the dirt. Came back to Maidan this year on the dirt and lost by a combined 51.5 lengths in 2 starts. Then they try this horse on grass for the first time. And what do you know? this horse really seems to love the turf. Love the turf. So very interesting path versus the stablemate Nation's Pride. Obviously, has been in the States since the middle of the summer, and has run at Belmont, Saratoga, and the Belmont meet at Aqueduct, 3 different surfaces, has 2 wins and a second. So definitely 2 different approaches for the Godolphin runners, but they're both strong in here. I know Bill made mention of Dayton O'Brien stats recently in the States and in the Breeders' Cup. I do think Broome has a strong shot here, and that's my top selection in this race. And really, I look at the path, and that for the second straight year, they really seem to be pointing this horse towards this race. And you have basically the exact same path of style of races. And last year, obviously, was just absolutely huge in this race, finishing second to Yabir. Really has a great closing kick. And I think really in this race, that will set up, obviously, 1.5 miles. It's going to be who can run the best final 16th. And I think this horse can definitely do it.
I'm totally on board. Broome is actually my top choice as well, believe it or not. I don't know
Ashley?
that is it yours as well, Ashley?
No, but I like Broome a lot, and I feel like this is a horse that, from what I have gathered from people that I talk horses with and whatnot, you either love Broome or you hate Broome, and I just feel like it's crazy that we all are like Team Broome.
Yeah, no, I mean the horse just needs firm ground. If you put a line through all of his wet turf races, you can make an excuse for the races in which he didn't, win or finish close up. I mean, there's nothing really not to like about Broome. He's just a steady type, and he's a more attractive price than, some of the others, specifically Nation's Pride. I mean, who's going to be, I would think, 5-2. So.
I'm not generally one to play the jockey game, but I do think it's worth mentioning that Irad's aboard for the second straight year. Obviously, Ryan Moore is the usual mount on this horse, and Ryan Moore is here, and Ryan Moore is on Stone Age, who I think is just a step down from Broome in terms of talent. So I think it's very interesting to see Irad go. And I also will mention with Ryan Moore in this horse, I think what we saw in the last 2 races is kind of an overcorrection. Really just came out very, very slow. I should say going back earlier in the summer at Royal Ascot in the Queen George and Queen Elizabeth Stakes, really actually kind of came out fast for this horse. This horse likes to settle and make one run. So then we saw the opposite at Saratoga in the Sword Dancer, where this horse crawled early and really seemed to be held back by Moore. And so I think this will also be a positive move, not saying that Ryan Moore's not one of the best jockeys in the world, because he is, but Irad seems to have that North American running style that I actually think this horse likes.
Ashley,
I do have a horse that's absolutely crazy to talk about, but I want to hear Ashley's take on it.
Yeah, let's get Ashley in on this. Go ahead.
I like Broome. I'm probably going to use Broome in second. Rebels Romance, I think, just looking at this year from him, he's hard to knock off all of his races, really his last 4. And I think just looking at them, JD touched upon it. This is a horse that did well on dirt, had 2 really bad performances. And you don't honestly see that too often, but they even said he didn't look good post-race in one of them. They didn't actually give him that much time off, and then they said, we're going to put on the shelf for a bit. Then he comes on the turf at 1.5 miles in those 4 races and just is a different animal. So I'm going to use that one on top. We talked about Broome. I like a lot of things that you guys said about the firmer ground. I think those last 2 efforts you can excuse. The Sword Dancer went favored, didn't win it, but still kind of made that run that we've seen from him in the past. 2 horses I want to mention. I truly don't know what to do with Warlike Goddess. I know this is a mare tackling the boys. I have kind of been enamored with her, and I remember vividly giving her to the Miami Dolphins when they were on the grounds at Gulfstream in the Orchid. They asked me, who did you like? She wasn't a huge price. She was 5-1. I just thought, looking at her kind of earlier races, and now to see what she's turned into, is she's a monster. I mean, she has faced the girls most of the time. Last time out, she was able to beat the boys. She beat Bye Bye Melvin, who draws to her inside. I still think this is deeper waters, especially with all the Euros that we mentioned that she's going to have to tackle today. I'm just curious to see what she's going to do. She's 2 for 2 at Keeneland. I think in her races, we've seen her close from the back of the pack, pretty far back, and she tried to do that at Del Mar last year, and she surrendered late, but ran one heck of a race, but she can be closer to do it, and she's got that inside draw, so I'm hoping she secures a good position, and I will use her a little lower. The only other wild horse, and I don't know if this is the same one that JD might throw out if you're, I don't know what to do with him. He's 8 years old, but the number 10, Red Knight, I'm actually going to use in the bottom of any sort of tickets that I play. This is a horse that through and through is going to close from off of it. We've seen that. He finished 8th last time, but he was beaten by a length and a half in that race. I'm just intrigued by him. And it's crazy because as a 7-year-old, I know he's now in the barn of Mike Maker. Not much to love about his season last year. And he's already got those 2 wins from 3 starts. I actually thought he ran a good race last time out and had trouble. Luis Saez climbs aboard. I don't know. He's 20-1. I'm just going to use him underneath. I mean, he's pretty salty. You look at his record. But I think last year he wasn't so strong. And as an 8-year-old, I likes the distance, and he's going to be rolling late.
Don't hedge, Ashley. Red Knight's hitting the board. I mean, there's no question Red Knight's hitting the board. It's going to be 60-1. He's going to hit the board. So if you want to hit the Triad of the Super, use Red Knight. This is my long shot play of the weekend. Red Knight, 100% hitting the board. Loves this particular distance. Finished eighth in the Sycamore with a 97 buyer, beaten just 2 lengths. Closed widest of all in a race where nobody was getting to the horses that were, in that top flight. This horse gets any pace at all, he finishes second. Even without pace, he finishes 3rd or 4th. And massive jockey upgrade to Luis Saez from Gerardo Corrales. Respect to Mr. Corrales, but Saez, big upgrade there. And just real quick, just because my boy here, Stevie, knows me so well, and he knows that when you're drinking the Natty Bows, when you're throwing them back, you start seeing all these different scenarios. And one of them that I definitely envisioned was Bye Bye Melvin down on the rail, potentially wiring. I don't know. I mean, the only other horse with obvious speed is Channel Maker, and I don't know. Channel Maker gets out of the gate sometimes he doesn't. Sometimes he presses, sometimes he doesn't. The horse has got his head in the clouds. So I think Bye Bye Melvin could hang around for a while. I don't think he's going to win. He's not good enough to win. But I think he could hang around for a while and catch a slice. JD, which one of these horses that we just mentioned is your long shot?
Well, of course, none of them, because you guys are terrible at picking long shots.
So much shade just thrown our way. My goodness.
I love you guys, but there's a horse that won a win in your in race that we have not talked about in this field. Any? So you have to go down to Hippodromo Gavia in Brazil. The Grande Primeiro Brazil winner, Nautilus, was 15-1 that day, was wearing saddle cloth 12 day, and you talk about post position and draws and winning at Keeneland. Look down on your past performances. What is Nautilus drawn in this race?
At a mile and a half, I don't mind post 12. I mean, a mile and a half, you can be at post 27. And you are Mr. International, right? You are, is that Pitbull, right? Is that who you are? You anything from overseas, I know you're going to be interested in.
Well, and so really, to speak honestly, I'm going to post on Twitter after this the video of that race, the win and you're in. It was back in June, so obviously time off. But what I've heard is that this horse has actually been in the States for quite a while under Paulo Lobo. So I don't think we're necessarily seeing that. I mean, you see it on the work tab a little bit going back to September, but I think this horse actually came in about August from what I've heard from the Lobo barn. So been around for a while, getting used to things. But this horse has a crazy closing kick, obviously a different level of competition down there, but going a mile and a half, this horse got cut off and then re-rallied somehow. It's a crazy race. I'm going to post it on Twitter if you guys haven't seen it. I'm not saying this horse is going to win, but I think, 3rd, 4th, if you're playing a super high 5, I think this is a horse that can close into this race, and I'm willing to give a shot. And, Javier Castellano in this spot. I mean, you can't go wrong there. So Nautilus is my crazy long shot. But if you're looking and holding me to numbers, I am 4, 5, 12, and okay, 10 is my 4th choice, and I wasn't going to say that.
No, I knew you liked them. Come on, I knew you liked Red Knight. Look, one of these days, one of these crazy international bombs is gonna hit. Who's the horse you gave me from Japan a couple of years ago in the Belmont? What's that horse's name? had
I've
like
given you so many horses from Japan. It's Crown Pride, probably. But
No, it wasn't Crown Pride. It was probably the year before. It had that weird name. Remember that Japanese horse with the weird name?
Oh, yeah.
I
We're not
don't
going to
know.
talk about that. That didn't go well for me.
Yeah. Anyway, Nautilus. This is something different. You haven't thrown Brazil at me, so I'm excited about this. Ashley, what are your numbers?
I'm gonna go 5, 4, 10, 2.
5, 4, 10, 2. Okay, I like it. Do you want to throw one more in?
I'm good with 4.
Okay, 4 is good. I'm going to throw 5 in. So I'm going 4 Broom, 10 Red Knight, 1 Bye Bye Melvin, 7 Nation's Pride, and 2 Warlike Goddess. I do like her.
One thing before we close out on that race, just in case people weren't wondering. So Mischief, we didn't talk about.
Yeah.
6-1 on the morning line, Frankie Dettori up. Frankie Dettori took the opposite route that most jockeys would take going from Europe to the U.S. for Keeneland. He rode in Australia, not on Melbourne Cup's card. He rode at Royal Randwick on Tuesday, Australia time, Monday night in the States, and got some mounts and did not actually pick up a victory. So he was going the long way around. So he had a very, very long trip going to Keeneland. So just something to keep in mind. Obviously, one of the best jockeys in the world, but I just thought that was an interesting fact that I haven't heard anybody else talk about. But he was riding in Australia this week, coming to Keeneland.
You always get into like the human aspects, like what's going on in their life right now. We should consider this.
Oh, it's Frankie Dettori. He's living the dream. I mean, come on.
He is. Steve brings up
backflipping his way.
Look, money never sleeps, and just in case you're looking for some World Cup, World Cup starts pretty soon, doesn't it? What are we? A couple weeks out?
Yeah, it starts later this month. Yeah.
Oh, that's gonna be fun. That's gonna be a good racing season. Winds down for a bit. Sit back, have a few White Claws, just betting random games on a Tuesday. Ashley,
I'm sure Marty will love this.
She's going to find reasons to go into work a lot more. I got to work a double today. Sorry, guys. All right. That was the turf. That was good. That was fun. Now the question is, who do we bet? Since, Flightline is obviously not that imposing here in the Classic.
So Mark posed a question earlier in and this is more of a quiz for you, Dan. He gave a scenario in how you beat a 2-5 Bob Baffert shot. And in this case, I'm going to replace Baffert's name with John Sadler. How do you beat a 2-5 John Sadler shot?
You take him outside of California, but it doesn't apply to Flightline.
No, he said you need a press. There are a lot of horses in this race that want to be on the lead, but they're not Flightline. So I think Flightline can get pressed, and I don't think it particularly matters. When we look at timing and we look at speed figures and we look at things like Timeform US figures that can give you during the duration of the race a pace number for various points. Normally with the speed horse, they go like this. They start really high and they go down. Flightline has a couple races, including obviously the last one in the Pacific Classic, where the horse started fast and actually got faster as the race went on. When you're at that level, you just throw your hands up. The other thing Mark said, you have to hit on all your A's in your multi-race exotics. I think Flightline's an A, and I don't think you can go too deep in trying to find a B here. I'll give one case to a B, but I think you can only have one B in this spot. For me, if there's an absolute pace meltdown and something happens, yes, this would set up perfectly for Epicenter. So maybe Epicenter's a B on a very small ticket, and you're playing Flightline as an A on a very large denomination ticket. That's the only unique way I can come up with playing this race. I guess you can try to hammer a super high 5 in an 8-horse field because they have it, because it's the Breeders' Cup. Other than that, I don't know.
Ashley, why don't we do this? Why don't you take us through the entire field, and just give us sort of the best case scenario for each horse. Start with Taba if you could.
This is like the pressure's on.
No, you got this. Come on.
Taba, I can vividly remember watching the Santa Anita Derby with you. Looked good. I didn't like the horse in the Derby, though. I just thought the experience factor. But I think now what we've seen in those last two races, I think he's hit another gear. He's got the inside draw, but looking at those last two races, both at 1.1 miles, he's got to prove himself at 1.25 miles because he didn't pull it off in the Derby, and it's the Derby. So draw line through it. It's 20 horses in a starting gate. I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to look at that. I don't mind him stretching out now. I do think in terms of, we know there's horses that want to be forwardly placed in here. We've seen what Flightline can do. JD's already talked about it. He can pick up speed as well. Do I think best case scenario? I think Taiba gets a piece. I think he can be in the top 3 in here. You move over to Life is Good, who was really kind of dazzling in 2021. And so far this year, he's only had that lone defeat, which was in the Dubai World Cup. But go back to him in the Pegasus. Start off the year in the Pegasus. The big storyline was kind of like the matchup that you'd want to see. The Knicks go. Life is Good, and it wasn't, to me, no contest. Life is Good, just to see how easy he made the lead. He wants the lead. We see that every time. I do think his last 2 races, he's won them. I think they've been less impressive than what we saw from him earlier this year and even later last year. So another one, he can still get a piece. Happy Saver, I can't really make a case for. I know Todd puts him in here, puts, Johnny in the irons. 4th in the Lucas Classic. You can make the argument Hot Rod Charlie, Rich Strike beat him in that occasion. Several have beaten him when you go down the page in his last 4. I don't see a scenario where he wins this. His mile and a
one
quarter
thing to interject real quick. I think since we're talking about best case scenario, I think for Happy Saver, it's making the starting gate. Quarter crack in the left hind foot. Didn't train today. I mean, I think this horse is probably a couple days out. You're most likely scratch of the 2 days. So if Happy Saver's healthy enough to make the starting gate, I think that's an accomplishment given the news that was reported by DRF today.
100%. Flightline, best case scenario, wins it. I also don't think he needs to be as good as he's shown. I mean, what he did in the Pacific Classic, and, obviously Breeders' Cup, TVG, all the channels, ABR, all these stories about Flightline. I mean, what you saw in the Pacific Classic, we don't see often. Not in, a lot of our lifetimes. We've seen good horses. We've seen American Pharoah in these performances. But what he did in the Pacific Classic on the stretch out to his furthest race, if he does that, it's game over. So best case scenario, he wins it. I even think medium case scenario, middle of the road, he still wins it. You move to his outside.
Wait. ABR did stories on Flightline?
I feel like you guys have promoted it a bunch.
Okay. Just check.
Sorry, just a few. Like my whole news feed, all Flightline, because he's such a great horse to get. We haven't seen this sort of racehorse in a long time. So he's kind of in a league of his own. Hot Rod Charlie, man, I'd still like to own, a part of him. You look at his resume. I know, he's won 2 races last year and 2 races this year. He comes in here off a win. It was a gritty win. I know there's a lot of bumping and what was going on in the stretch of the Lucas Classic. He could not beat Life is Good in the Whitney at Saratoga. For one thing, Hot Rod Charlie always puts a fight in. I mean, he's tough. You can't count him out. Best case scenario, I mean, he can get a piece of this as well. And that's like the same story as we go down. What do you get? Because if you're looking at Flightline winning, you're just trying to figure out other horses. Epicenter, out of the 3-year-olds, certainly to me, he's been the monster out of the 3-year-old crop this year. You look at his performances going into the Derby, his Derby performance, he ran one heck of a race. It's just that Rich Strike and the trip that Sonny Leon crafted. Remarkable, to say the least, considering the post position. And then to see him, have that good performance in the Preakness. Early voting's been retired since then after having a couple dull efforts. And he loves Saratoga. I like that he went the 1.25 miles again. So I liked seeing that from him. I think he's got a good shot. Like JD said, probably, if anything crazy happens, he's got a huge shot in here. And there is, he can run down at the pace. Olympiad, looking at his races, he was on a win streak for a while, right? In the Whitney, he faced a lot of these horses. And I do wonder if that took a bit of a toll on him for that race. He was kind of in that hard campaign for a while. He did follow it up with a win last time out. I just think looking at the Grade 1 Jockey Gold Cup, he faced softer than he's facing today. You look at the other horses in here, and they're not taking a chance in the starting gate against this group. So I don't really like Olympiad on the spot. I know he's had a stellar year, as I mentioned, and Rich Strike, he's the horse. He's America's horse, as they said, right? To see the upset that he pulled in the Kentucky Derby out of that post position and the trip, that Sonny Leon crafted. He didn't handle the Belmont. When you hear Eric Reed, that's really the only head scratcher that he had was the Belmont performance. Travers, I think that's where he started to say, hey, he's still a talented horse. He's still good enough. And then the Lucas Classic, I know there's a lot of controversy in just terms of what happened in the race riding technique. I think Sonny Leon wanted to win the race. I think he did everything that he could to win that race, and he was second. So I think he's, people are thinking about him again, but when you're going against Flightline and some of the other horses, I don't see him winning the race. I mean, he's shown that he can get a minor piece, and he was right there with Hot Rod Charlie. But to me, it's Flightline, and then from there, up a center, and then maybe a Taiba Life is Good situation. I don't see a situation where Flightline loses, and with this being a $6 million race, if you're second here, it's still a lot of, money on the line, and it's still a good performance, especially depending, how close you were to winning this race. But it's going to be a big race, and kind of talking about this race, I will not bet the Classic. I'm going to watch the race. I'm not going to try to beat Flightline. The only way that I'd be involved in this is if I'm doing some, multi-race sequence. I think I'm just going to enjoy it as a fan of the sport and see, what sort of performance we see. But we alluded to this earlier, and I know JD will agree with this. With Flightline and the odds you're going to get, it's not really a pick five necessarily anymore when you're thinking about things. So I also think in terms of that sort of thing, if you're all in on Flightline like a lot of us are, you got to think about what the payouts could be depending what happens in the earlier races. So I think for me, I'm just going to be a fan of the sport and see what the Breeders' Cup Classic brings.
But you're going to do a multi-race sequence. We're doing it.
I just heard, I'm going to get a Venmo request from Dan. Can you send me some money for a split?
JD's in on it too. We're doing a multi-race sequence. Just be prepared. Jose's in on it. Bill's probably going to be on it. Everybody, D'Lo, everybody's in on it. So
it's just going to be the normal text group, Dan.
You're going to have some stake in this race. I mean, you may not bet it straight up, but you're going to have some stake in this race. Rashawn, by the way, Epicenter's race to lose. I mean, talk about confidence. He's just like Epicenter's going to win this race. Like, there's no question. Epicenter's going to win this race. So, I mean, I think, if there's a case to be made for any horse to win other than Flightline, it's Epicenter. I think we could sort of agree on that. And the other scenario, Life is Good. So I don't like Life is Good at all. I truly feel like this horse is not meant to be going 1.25 miles. I have him completely off the board at 1.25 miles. I mean, you watch, the way he's run at 1.125 miles. I mean, specifically, you watch that Whitney. He almost leaned right into Happy Saver. I mean, almost took him out at the rail. I mean, the horse is just tired, super tired at 1.125 miles. I mean, he could barely, make 1.125 miles. You look at him in 1.25 miles Dubai World Cup. I know he took a ton of pressure there, and it's kind of an oddly run race, but Life is Good is not meant to run 1.25 miles. And so, as I say this, watch him open up a comfortable lead and do, 3/4 and 1:16 or something, and Flightline patiently sitting 5 lengths behind for some reason because Flavian's so confident, and then Life is Good does win. But no, I mean, reasonably you would expect they're going to do low 47s, I don't know, 111, 110. And change. I mean, if they're going the slowest race of their life, and Flightline is going to be right there outside of them. I mean, in Flightline, you're talking about a horse who did a 109 and 4, and drew away by 20. I mean, and every other horse was under this intense ride. So, I don't know. I'm with you. Flightline wins this race. It's a battle for second. I think Taiba. If Mikey can bide his time and just just hope that something develops in front of him in terms of everyone thinks it's going to be Taba that's going to go with Life is Good. But if it's Life is Good and maybe, I don't know, maybe Olympiad goes early, and maybe that's the little scenario he could sit behind a little bit. Maybe he passes those two and finishes second. The other horse that you just touched on, Ashley, who is interesting and has got no respect at all, is Rich Strike, because there's absolutely a scenario in which Taba, Hot Rod Charlie, Epicenter, Olympiad, they're all just going after Life is Good. They're chasing him early. Flightline makes that move. They don't want Flightline to get away, so they start chasing Flightline. They make no progress at all. They're completely demoralized. And Rich Strike, 20 lengths behind, is like, all right, I'll start moving now, and just passes these horses who have just completely had like their hearts crushed trying to chase Flightline down after chasing Life is Good. And maybe Rich Strike finishes second. You got a decent exacta. Have I made the case for you to actually bet this race straight up?
I don't think so. But I will say one thing about Rich Strike. I don't think early on they're going to go at it. I don't know if he's going to be 20 off of it, because that's been the thing with Rich Strike, at least going into the Derby. And I know those races were not on the dirt when you look at the races at Turfway. But this is a horse that was just kind of minding his own business. He did the same thing in the Derby, was at the back of the pack. Obviously had the pace to run at, got the trip and won. But I do think he's been closer in his last couple. And last time out, he showed a bit of a different dimension. And I think, not that they needed validation. He was still a Derby winner. I think that's, everyone's dream, but he at least stamped himself as like, he's still a serious horse in here. I don't think you've convinced me to play in the exotics or anything of that nature, just because unless I'm going to have a strong opinion, I'm going to hammer something, straight. I just don't see a world where I'm going to have the return that I'm looking for. So like I said, if we're alive and our tickets, and hopefully we'll be alive, get some bombs, the Brazilian horse and that going into this, I'll feel fine. But I do think for me, I'm just going to enjoy the race as a fan. So you did not work with the peer pressure.
Yeah, the Nautilus Flightline double will pay, by the way. So is that what you're doing, JD?
Well, I was more thinking, I think the double is to play the race after, because I think there's a very, like, my strongest bet of the race is probably in the Fall Harvest Stakes after the technical analysis. But we're not doing that on this show. We're doing technical analysis about the Breeders' Cup races. So I have two things I'll say on the Classic. You were trying to make a case for Life is Good, Dan. I can make a case for Life is Good. It's about 4 inches of rain. You get 4 inches of rain, pedigree, and we've also seen Life is Good handle the slop really well. Last out. I mean, that's the story there. And then I'll take the human interest side. And really, I think one thing that can be said through all of this with Rich Strike is that Eric Reed and Richard Dawson have stuck by Sonny Leone. Sonny has 7 mounts at Gulfstream on Friday, and they're obviously going to get him a nice first-class flight out of, I assume he'll fly out of Fort Lauderdale, Hollywood to Keeneland. Get him a nice flight. Maybe even they'll spring for a nice private flight. But they're sticking by their jockey, even though he has no business. And by no business, I mean he has no jockey business. He has no mounts at Keeneland, but they're still flying him up for this race. He's keeping his book in at Gulfstream right now for that meet. So kind of hats off to the connections there for staying loyal to a jockey that, deserves it with what he's done with this horse.
Sorry, on the mute again. Okay, so all in all, we're betting Flightline. If we're betting at all, we're probably not betting unless we're playing multis or just hammering something. The late race 11 to race 12 full harvest double, which I guess is JD's play for this. So. Yeah, look, this has been fun. JD, we didn't have you on. We made you wait late. It's 10:30. We're now an hour and a half past Ashley's bedtime. But we'll give you one more opportunity. If there's anything else, any other races that you had strong feelings on that you want to mention real quick. And then Ashley, we'll kind of get you on, hey, this is my best bet of the weekend. But go ahead, JD. Who's the one horse you want to make sure that there's some record of you saying that they're going to win this weekend?
Filly Mare Sprint. obligatory.
Okay.
I'm just going to leave it at that.
Short and sweet. Ashley?
It's tough. I think I kind of stressed. I really like the juvenile turf and the juvenile Phillies turf. I really like Major Dude in the juvenile turf. So I use that as my one. That's what I'm going to hammer. I just thought looking at the races, the turf races are very challenging. Probably where I'll spend most of my effort and probably my wagering dollars. But we talked about some of the dirt races on Saturday, especially the girls. They're a little tricky to get through. So overall, though, I think it's going to be a great betting weekend. And I hope that I do well enough Friday that there's some ammunition for Saturday.
All right. My best bet of the weekend is in the distaff. I'm going to go with number 8, Society, as my absolute best bet of the weekend. My sort of mid-priced value plays that I like, probably, let's see, I'd go Tuesday, the 5-horse and the Filly and Mare Turf. I like that horse a lot. I mentioned Cazadero earlier, but that horse is 20-1, so I guess it's not really like a mid-price play. Cazadero in the Turf Sprint. And then my absolute bonkers, just insane play of the weekend, which I mean, I just need this horse to finish in the top 3, is Sabra Tough. This will set the stage for the weekend because it's the second race of the day on Friday, but Sabra Tough in the juvenile Phillies. You guys don't think it's going to happen, do you?
I didn't see it. I think when we talk about long shots, you paint a picture and I can like get on board, and I am not on that ship this time. So you're by yourself. I'll talk to you after that race potentially. Hopefully you're in good spirits, but
Yeah.
that
Like
was
Ren
one that
said, I could be eating the Sabra hummus if anything.
is this
to
like a
console myself.
sponsorship thing that you're trying to secure?
Exactly. It's all subtle place for sponsorship. Travis, I'm glad he did chime in. If anybody's in the chat wants to chime in with their best bets of the weekend, Travis, domestic spending. We had this conversation with Bill. JD, any thoughts on the domestics? I mean, because it's such an intriguing storyline this weekend.
I mean, it's such a layoff.
No,
I'm not there.
Okay.
My heart might be there. My wallet and my brain are not.
Yeah. No, it's fair enough. Fair enough. Stevie, thanks for hanging with us all night, my man. This has been a lot of fun. Ashley, we gotta, we can't wait 2 more years before we do one more of these, right? This has been
I know.
great.
I was on that long layoff, a domestic spending sort of layoff. I'm back, and hopefully much more of this. We've had a lot of fun on all the different ones we've done for kind of the lead up to the Triple Crown races, Woodbine Live. We've done a lot, so it's kind of like riding a bike. It's great to be back.
Yeah, and I will say, in your absence this year, and really in my absence largely, now that I have JD in front of our viewers and I'm on with him, JD, we owe a ton of gratitude to for really like not only carrying a lot of our Woodbine coverage throughout the year, but just kind of being behind the scenes and pulling a lot of strings for us here. So, JD, we appreciate you. We love you. We appreciate you, man.
I think I'm most appreciated by there was a few spam bots with some porn stuff that I got rid of mid-show. So thank you.
I saw that, and of course I knew. I was like, who else? Who's blocking people? I'm like, oh, of course JD's blocking. He's the admin here. He's blocking people. But JD, seriously, man, thank you, brother.
Of course, thanks, guys, and I hope everybody hits every wager, which is never going to happen, but no. We can all try, can't we?
And I hope Nautilus wins, so the next time we're all together, JD can buy drinks and dinner with those winnings.
Yes.
Well,
all right.
I'm glad you think it's just drinks and dinner, because based on the fact that the horse is going to be like 70-1 on the board, I thought you wanted a jet ski or something to enjoy while you're still in Florida.
Yeah, I don't know. If I make it back to Buffalo, I don't know how good a jet ski is. I don't know if I want to take that on Lake Erie, so we'll see.
You could take it over Niagara Falls. It'll be fine.
Oh, yeah. Jesus. All right, everyone. Good luck this weekend. Let me pull this down real quick. All right, that's out of the way. Good luck, everyone. Happy Breeders' Cup. We'll see you next time. Bye.